All right, welcome to another Wednesday here on the Line Network where I get to host the Hang Up, and this is the start. Tonight is the official start, even though we're gonna do it this weekend, to the Recovering from Religion fundraiser. Uh, Jimmy and I talked about it earlier this morning. I'm going to go through the schedule here in just a little bit, or at least the part of the schedule that I have. But we are setting up all of the donations tonight to go to Recovering from Religion, just like we'll be doing this weekend. So we're doing everything we can to support Recovering from Religion in our annual, semi-annual, biannual, whatever the hell it is, fundraiser that we do for a great organization. And let me talk to you about why first. Over the years, many of you have seen me involved in debates and discussions on call-in shows, doing debates at churches, which is my favorite place to do debates. Although, quite frankly, the last debate I did in a church, I think there were more atheists who showed up to watch it live than there were theists. I'm not completely sure, but it's always fun. I I have fun talking to atheists, but I'd much rather be involved talking directly to theists, Christians, Muslims, whatever. And over the years of doing that, the secular community has continued to grow. The nuns, the NONE nuns, the people who identify without any religious preference or religious identity, one of the fastest growing religious identities in modern times. And as that happens, and as we get more and more people involved doing shows on the internet, doing debates on the internet, posting their things, posting memes, which I'll get on the memes at another time, but all of that tends to raise the signal to noise ratio with respect to secular identity, secular values, secular communities. And because it raises the visibility, it puts more and more people in a potentially difficult and uncomfortable position of having to defend their beliefs even to themselves. To sit there and say, how is it that there are all these godless heathens running around pointing out this and pointing out that? Now, to be fair, not everything that the atheists are pointing out is reasonable or good. Some of it is absolute garbage. I already mentioned that I'm starting a new series of videos on my personal channel called Beast Videos or Beast Memes, sorry. And I'm going to go through some of the memes that are posted by atheists, because let me tell you, none of y'all watching today are part of the problem. I'm sure. I'm confident that you guys are all awesome, but there are some stupid atheists out there who create some incredibly stupid memes to try to kind of dunk on theists. My most annoying one of the last week is somebody said, "Hey, if Mary was a virgin, why did Jesus have older brothers?" Ha ha ha. I don't know how lazy and stupid you have to be to think that, first of all, that's really the case. The Bible never, ever lists Jesus having older siblings. It puts some siblings for Jesus, does not identify who their mother was, which is how the Catholic Church and others have suggested that maybe these kids were from other wives of Joseph. But they don't ever say that the ages of any of them. So to take the mere mention that there were other kids and then say, no, no, he had two older brothers, and to be specific like that shows that you didn't read the Bible. And if you did look at it, you were too lazy to investigate and know what it was. And when I called someone out for this, they got all butthurt about how there's other memes on this site that are worse than mine. Yeah, and I'll get to them. You just happen to be first in line. It's not my fault that you chose to propagate a lazy lie that increases the workload for the rest of us. Because now, when I engage with one of my theistic friends or one of my theistic debate opponents, they're going to pop this up and go, look how dumb the atheists are. They can't even read it. They can't even think. Well, no, the normal thing was to list siblings or list children in order from oldest to youngest. Yes. And even if that was true, and if it said Matt had four siblings, they are from eldest to youngest, Jim, Bob, Jane, and Sue. That doesn't mean any of them are older than me. That's the eldest to youngest order of those siblings. I could still be older than all of them. And what's worse is this meme is something that there's a real issue there. Was Mary a virgin? No. Was Mary a perpetual virgin? No. But the churches they're hung up on this thing so much that they're willing to do cartwheels to get over it. And if you go for the not true, not reasonable attack on this, then they get away with just dismissing you. They don't even have to present their bizarre defense of Mary's virginity. They just get to say, look, another atheist that doesn't know what they're doing. So I'm going to be going through a bunch of memes and ranking them from S tier memes to absolute fucking garbage memes. Because if it's not true, I mean, what could be better for the theistic community to do than to start posting fake anti-Christian memes that get things about the Bible obviously wrong? And that just post them all over the place. Post these, basically they'd be like little false flags. And then the atheists who don't know any better share it and laugh and poke and did you get that information from a talking snake? And pat themselves on the back for getting the correct answer to the easiest question in the history of the world, which is, do I have any good reason to believe that there's a magic man existing outside of space and time who created everything and cares who I have sex with? It is troubling, but it's what we've built. And a lot of it is great stuff. It's unusual to find memes that are really good content, good information, that are true and actually work to increase people's desire to participate in a secular world, to find their way free of religion. But when they are good, and when the debates are good, which is not always the case, including mine, and when the discussions are good, which is not always the case, including the ones I've had, but when they are good, the debates and education and discussions are important. And the creation of secular communities as landing places for people finding their way out of religion is important. But there's a gap. There's a gap between, hey, I posted a meme, hey, I had a debate, or hey, I saw this and I couldn't defend my religion, and finding your way free to where you are actively recovering from religion. And recoveringfromreligion.org helps to bridge that gap by helping folks they have trained volunteers, and there are local RFR groups in some areas that can have conversations and offer resources to the people who are questioning their religion and to those who have found themselves free of religion and unsure how to navigate a life free from religious doctrine. This is why I've been involved with RFR from the beginning and will continue to be, and this is why we're doing the fundraiser this weekend. Please consider clicking the donate button and consider volunteering with Recovering from Religion. 100% of your donations go to RFR. And if you're able to volunteer, I know that they always need and welcome volunteers. Definitely join us the remainder of this weekend. We'll be having a fundraiser with, I'll underline the fun and fundraiser. We'll try to make it as fun as we can, hoping to raise $35,000 for Recovering from Religion. So it's time to tighten your belt, help participate. And first of all, thank you all for your support. And if you're not able to financially support it, if you're not able to volunteer, just being here this weekend and participating to draw attention to this is a good thing. And we are incredibly grateful for the people who are participating. I'm going to bring my guest in just a minute, but I want to make sure I get the announcements out of the way first. This is The Hang Up. It's my show. I get to do whatever I want, but there's some other stuff that I'm going to be doing. I did a poll recently to see if you guys would be interested in having Than Christopoulos, who's a Christian that I debated last month in Tampa, on the show. It turns out it doesn't really make sense to put him on the Sunday show, and it doesn't make sense to put him on the Hang Up, but we could always do a Cus I Wanna, or we could do one of the other kind of discussion debate-like shows. So I already reached out to Than, and he's interested. We're probably going to do some other stuff, including like joint debate reviews and things like that. Because I think that despite the fact that people, it's nice to show that people can disagree and not have to make it a WWE event and hate each other. It was nice to do a debate where somebody didn't lie, where they didn't try to change the topic of the debate, after it started, etc. But coming up the rest of this week is Transatlantic Call-In Show is going to be tomorrow at 2 p.m. Josie Caballero is going to host it along with Stephanie Helms. Friday, there's going to be a Recovering from Religion pre-show. I don't have dates and time on there, and that's why you need to click like. That's why you need to subscribe and ring the bell so that you get the notification when Jimmy posts what's going on Friday for the Recovering from Religion pre-show. Saturday is going to be the RFR charity. All of those events will be posted. You'll be able to see the schedule coming up. I'm guessing either later today or possibly tomorrow we'll have the schedule posted somewhere. The Sunday show at 2 p.m. is going to be myself and Eric from Skeptics and Scoundrels, and the Sunday late show is going to be Forrest and Paul. Monday Skeptalk is going to be interesting because it's Aron and Aaron, which might help some of you start to get Aron's name right. But Skeptalk is going to be a lot of fun with Aron Ra and Aaron Adair. And then Tuesday's Chewed Gum will be even Alyssa again. I'm still just digging that show all the time. There will possibly be a Cus I Wanna with me and Dan. We've got callers already on hold, and we'll be getting to them in a little bit. As always, we're going to prioritize theistic callers. But if you're someone who is interested in volunteering with Recovering from Religion or finding out more about Recovering from Religion, if you have questions specifically about that organization, if you're considering donating and want to know what does my money go to, my guest tonight is Dr. Darrel Ray, the founder of Recovering from Religion, and also the author of a number of books. Darrel's been a friend of mine for years. He's been a guest so many times on the show. And tonight he's going to come in and not only tell you a little bit about his life story, but also the story of RFR for a few minutes. And don't let me go on to calls without having him tell you about the billboards that he just told me about the other day. Welcome, Dr. Darrel Ray.
Hey, thanks, Matt. I'm looking forward to this tonight. It's always fun to be on with you. As I was saying before the whole show began, I've learned some skills, whether I liked it or not, on how to deal with callers that are not using their brains appropriately, I guess you could say. Anyway, fun to be back on here.
Well, we're thrilled. So, normally we talk primarily just about RFR and everything else. I want people to first of all take a couple minutes to get to know you, your background with religion, and how and what led you to realizing the need for RFR and setting it up initially. And then tell us about those billboards, and we'll get on to calls.
Wow, and you want me to do this in 15 minutes or less? Is that what you're saying?
Sure, pretty close.
Okay. Well, the short story on myself is I was raised in a really religious environment with my grandpa, grandma, my grandpa was 45 years a country church preacher, and my other grandpa was an elder for his whole life. My dad was an elder. My dad and mom became missionaries, so I was surrounded by religion. And went through college, took sociology, anthropology, and realized, this ain't what they taught us in Sunday school. I never believed. People accuse me of having never been a good Christian, and I just say, yeah, you're right. I never was. I just couldn't quite believe all the fairy tales in Genesis or anything. But I stuck with it because I wanted to help people, and that was like I've always had a feeling I want to help people. That's my purpose. The purpose I've made for myself, anyway.
Sure.
And so that led me to be a Sunday school teacher, to be a high school Sunday school teacher for the high school, to be a Sunday school teacher for adults. I taught a lot of different classes in Sunday schools and churches. I even preached for a while, but I even went to seminary, got Garrett College for Christian Workers, which does not exist anymore, but in Nashville, Tennessee, right across the street from Vanderbilt. But in that journey through college and through graduate school, I slowly but surely realized it's all pretty much bullshit. But I was still married to a religious person, and we were married. She liked going to church, so we agreed to go to church, usually at the most liberal church we could find, because neither one of us really believed the more fundamentalist stuff. Her parents were just as fundamentalist as mine and my grandparents were. So she came from it. She had it just as bad as I did in some ways. But we went to liberal churches. Ultimately ended up in a Quaker church, which I went to Friends University. I wasn't a Quaker when I went there, but later became I consider myself today a Quaker atheist, if you will, because I love the principles, many of the principles of the Quaker religion, I guess you could say. But anyway, throughout all that, I had a good journey through anthropology, through sociology, then through religion with a master's degree, and it really put everything together. Even though I stayed in religion, I, I, I had all these ideas and concepts in my head, just kind of swimming around in there. And I could see during this time all the harms and hurts. I was a church camp counselor and watched ministers who I later found out were having affairs with the choir director or having affairs with other men's wives and stuff like that. But I
Mm.
watched these ministers berate young girls at church camp for being sluts or dressing inappropriately. I watched them castigate boys in public for masturbating. And this was when I'm a sophomore in college. And I saw the devastation that brought to these children because they were,
To be
they were
fair,
14.
the
Yeah.
masturbation was not taking place in public. It was the castigation that took place in public.
Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, we wouldn't want to give the wrong impression about my church camps. But I just saw this horrible. And then I actually became a youth group pastor at Antioch Christian Church in Wichita, Kansas, a church that my own parents had founded. So I got the job partly because my parents had founded that church. They weren't attending there anymore when I went there, but as a result of that, it's a long story. You can go online and even see the video of it. My journey through the church and civil rights. I was very interested in civil rights, and as a result, I brought a black youth group and my white youth group because the Antioch Christian Church was lily white. And boy, that caused just having two youth groups meet together with different skin colors seemed to be the worst sin you could create. And I got fired. I mean, it's a long story. It's more detailed than I'm giving you here, but I got fired for simply bringing two Christian churches together. And they were even the same denomination. It's not like I was bringing a Catholic church, or a Muslim church in. It was the same damn denomination. So I got fired, and that was lesson number one. Lesson number two, I ran a bus ministry. Did you know that, Matt?
I did not know that you ran a bus ministry.
I did.
Why didn't you drive a bus ministry? It seems so much more effort to run one than to drive one.
Well, I tried both. After I got fired from Antioch, I came back to my home church and asked them if I could use our bus to go pick up children. I'd read this book by a Baptist minister and thought, I can now bring kids to church. Well, I went out and got kids from the projects that were just down the street from where I lived. So it's not like I was going clear across town. It's 3 miles from our church. And I brought them in. And in the course of a year, I was bringing I would have a busload. On Sunday morning, I would bring 40 kids in that were not going to be in any other church. And I thought this was the greatest thing. I was bringing kids to Jesus or whatever, and that really upset the board of directors. They gave me permission, but they didn't. When they didn't realize that I might be bringing black and brown kids into the church. Anyway, they didn't fire me because my dad was the chairman of the elders, but they would have if he hadn't been there. And he didn't particularly like it either, but he wasn't going to stop his son, who was getting ready to go to seminary, because as soon as I graduated, I went to seminary. And as soon as I left, they stopped the program. The person I trained to drive the bus and pick up those kids simply didn't show up, never picked up a kid again. So these lessons were piling up in my mind. And the churches are actively racist, actively misogynistic. I saw it all, but I was surrounded, of course, by religion and family. And so I stayed in until around 1987 when I got divorced. And when I got divorced, even though it was an amicable divorce, we're still friends. We still have kids and grandkids that we enjoy. But it wasn't just getting divorced from a marriage. I got divorced from religion at that time, too. And that was liberating. I no longer had to go to church on Sunday morning. I no longer had to pretend that I believed what my in-laws believed or what my parents believed. And that was really eye-opening for me. It's the first time I think I'd stepped out of the bubble entirely. And I couldn't I can't tell you, as we've heard it from many people, Matt, I know you have too, how liberating it is once you get outside of that bubble and you
Yeah.
realize, wow, there's so much more to this world. So I won't bore you any longer. I could go on and on about my story, but I
No, it's exciting.
by
It
1988 I was kind of out.
yeah. It is interesting from to hear from people who went to churches of different denominations and with different traditions and practices. I mean, obviously, I was a Southern Baptist and was familiar with the way some Southern Baptist churches did it, because they don't all do things the same. And so
No,
when
they
you start
don't.
talking about how you felt seeing churches, it's like awakening to the fact that it's a business for the first time, really. Because we
Yeah,
all,
yeah,
at some level, we all knew it was a business, and we all still kind of know it's a business. But seeing and grasping that truly for the first time is really eye opening. And the part of the problem is that those of us who are seeing it for the first time, we were in positions, we were sincere believers. I wasn't part of any
yeah,
business. I wasn't doing anything remotely business related. And the message that they keep trying to promote is this, hey, it's time for the Lottie Moon offering. It's time for this. It's time for that. We're doing all this and
yeah.
we're doing good and we're helping people. And I, I think there's just enough truth in that to hide the big problems for a while, but not enough to hide them forever.
Another key theme, I look back and I see themes in my life that I wouldn't have recognized when I was in the middle of it, was the sexual abuse, the sexual grooming, inappropriate sexual behavior of the ministers in all eight of the churches, eight, I think, eight, yeah, eight of the eight churches in my congregation, Wichita, Kansas. There were eight different ministers that had affairs, and they didn't get fired for it. Usually, the first or second time. One out of the
Mm.
one church had two different ministers with affairs. One of those churches did not have a minister with an affair, but he was a financial embezzler. So all eight churches at the time that I was there either had an embezzler or an adulterer, so to speak. And that theme hit me. Well, if you truly, if this shit really works, then the people at the top, the ministers, should be the purest, the ones preaching that purity and preaching, godliness and all this. But they aren't. They're the opposite. And only later did it all kind of come together. And I think the book that even brought it together even more was Dr. Hector Garcia's book, Alpha God. When I read that a few years ago, I thought, okay, he nailed it. Every one of those ministers was simply being a primate, alpha primate, basically.
It makes you wonder,
Yeah.
and I know you held on to these lessons and they were critical to, getting the idea to do something that was truly helping people with recovering from religion. But it's like, if you watch, I saw a thing the other day, a meme that just said, if prayer worked, it wouldn't be allowed in casinos. And, that's a good little chuckle. That's not one of the worst memes, but it's
Yeah.
worse than that, because if prayer works, there couldn't be casinos. It's not like you have to pray in them, and it's not like they could do anything to stop you from praying in there. If prayer worked, no church would ever go bankrupt. Matter of fact, any church that has folded and gone bankrupt and has been for sale, evidently that was not a real church of the true living God at all.
My
If
home
prayer
church, the
worked,
one I
there'd be
mentioned,
nothing.
it, it is out of business. It went out of business about 7 years ago. It sat on the market for 2 or 3 years. They couldn't sell it. Finally, this evangelical group decided to buy it for $1 million. And then they got this big article in the newspaper about how God was blessing them. I mean, it was a big article for having given them this church. And I'm thinking, well, what about all the people who went bankrupt? So anyway, I watched this, and about a year later, it comes out that there is a EPA violation on the property of the church, and it cannot be rehabilitated until that EPA violation is taken care of, and it was $1 million. So they were going to take $1 million to buy the building, $1 million to rehab it, and then they had another $1 million they had to do the EPA. The building still has not opened, and that was like 5 years ago. I don't know. Sometimes karma, it feels like there is karma, I guess. But life-wise, Matt, I had the hardest time coming out as an atheist, and not because I still held any beliefs, but because I was a businessman. I was a psychologist with corporate clients, and so I resisted being openly public about it for 20 years. I didn't come out until 2007 or 8 when I told my staff that I was writing the God virus, and my staff was friendly to my views. They weren't horrified, but they were horrified that I was writing a book about it. The worst thing you can do is advertise it, I guess. I didn't know that at the time. So I let it out through writing the God virus, and boy, within months I lost most of my clients. Only 2 clients still existed after 6 months, and that was clients that had been with me for 20 years, who knew me really well, trusted me. People do not hold on to a consultant if you're not doing damn good work. Most consultants come in, do their thing, and leave, and you never know. But 20 years of work with them, and they just dropped me, because a lot of my clients were HR people who were actually evangelicals too, and they just couldn't deal with somebody that was an out atheist. Now, they knew I wasn't religious. Probably I didn't advertise it, but pretty big lesson. Thankfully, the God virus sold so damn well that I didn't really lose any income during that time.
Well, we're getting ready to go take some callers here, but I thought we had a theist caller there for just a second. There's this dude in chat going by the name of Lawrence who's like, I challenge Matt to a debate where he doesn't have his mute button. And so first of all, Lawrence, you can actually go to the website. You can go to call the line, or I almost gave the wrong website there. You go to qnaline.com, and over there is a link where you can apply to be on InBoss, which takes away the mute button. Now you get to speak for your 10-minute opening completely uninterrupted, as long as you're not, being a racist, whatever troll. You would get an entire time to do that. You can watch an episode of it and see how absolutely fair it is. It exists there so that you don't have to be afraid of the mute button. But also you can watch the conversations that I've had with many other theists, where if they're actually willing to engage in an honest conversation, they don't tend to get muted. I mean, if you have a really good case to make for the existence of God, we'd love for you to call and do it. As a matter of fact, just for you, Lawrence, today, as a special treat, if you'll donate $10 to Recovering from Religion and call in, I will give you 5 minutes where only you and Daryl get to talk. If not, then you're just talking out your ass. And we all know it. Oh, Matt's too easy to defeat in a debate. Matt's too easy. It's just not worth my time. It's too easy. Yeah, you should go ask God what he wants you to say, because so far you are all an embarrassment to that God. So, Daryl, we're doing this fundraiser this weekend. I know we're going to have some individuals calling in on behalf of RFR, and there's going to be people with questions. I'm going to go to the first caller here in just a minute. But when you sat down and said, I need to do something, how much time was there from the decision to make an organization to RFR going live? Because it seems to me that from the moment it went live, it was like everybody was just like, wow, why haven't we been doing this for 10 years or 20 years?
Well, that happened literally. This is literally true. That April 26th, 2009. That is just last month was our 15th birthday, and my book, The God Virus, came out in January, and soon after I had the idea to have a small group and of people who were, and I just put an advertisement in Match.com, Match.com on Meetup.
Wow.
Yeah, not Match. Well, that could have happened too. I don't know. And I asked anybody want to come and talk about how religion helped hurt you and what, and 11 people showed up. I only knew one of the people. And after about 2 or 3 hours, I had people crying. I had people sobbing. I had people telling their life stories and about how they'd been abused or, it was eye-opening. And that was the first meeting I ever tried. And when I walked out of that back room of an IHOP in Kansas City, Kansas, I realized I had a tiger by the tail. And that's when RFR started. And we started having monthly meetings right after that. And within another month or two, we had 2 monthly meetings here in Kansas City. And then not long after that, we had another one in Topeka, Kansas, and then one in Ohio. We had 5 or 6 meetings within, I would say, 3 or 4 months after I started. And it was very informal to begin with because I really didn't know, Matt. I didn't know if this was a viable idea or not. And it took us about 3 years to finish our incorporation process. But officially it started 15 years ago last month.
That's so awesome. Well, let's continue on with the 15 years ago last month thing. And we're going to go ahead and start taking callers here. Starting with Joe in Massachusetts. I believe that's correct. Is that correct?
That is so correct. You have no idea how correct that is.
Well,
it
can only be a maximum of 100% correct. But Joe's an atheist calling in from Massachusetts.
I like to think so.
Yeah. And you had questions about RFR, so you have called the perfect day and time to do that.
I'm delighted about the fundraiser. I already threw you guys $20. I just re-upped my membership to all the shows. Blah, 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 blah. Cool. So I don't know how much you guys are for origin stories, but I'll just shut up about all that shit because it's generally really tiresome when a theist calls in and they want to belabor the point of however they got to where they're at. But how I got to where I'm at, I grew up right outside of D.C. I'm 52. And I am a recovering Catholic. In that, well, yeah, that's it. I mean, that's it.
Good.
And now, cheers. I've been sober for 14 goddamn years and quit smoking, and I still smoke pot like a chimney, but, I still smoke pot like Marley, but I'm in a legal state, so what are you going to do? I mean, I just happen to be stuck here, so I'm fully delighted. Any rate, my point being, I would love to volunteer. However, I feel like such a bitter asshole as an anti-theist and subgenius. If you're familiar, I don't know if you are familiar with the Discordian faith. Hail Eris.
Yeah.
Right. Eris, the subgenius, led me to gain the distance from my own situation and look behind the scenes and behind all the smoke screens and all the garbage that religion puts out, because it puts forth these really ludicrous suggestions and you can't falsify them. Is it a joke based on a religion, or is it a religion based on a joke? You don't know. That's why I'm an anti-theist.
I know.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
there it is. But I feel so surly. I feel so surly about my own baggage that I just don't know if I could even be compassionate.
Well, Joe, you are not the first person. Yeah, you're not the first person that's told us that. But you don't have to volunteer.
I could go into origin stories, believe me. I have nothing but time. I am unemployed. I'm 52 again. I feel like I'm about 20, mentally 26. The body's more like 80, but, 50s. What are you going to do? I was a vicious alcoholic. I almost died. I had DT seizures. I would black out on a regular basis, and I ended up homeless. And for 8 months, I had to go to 6 AA meetings a week, required to stay in this shelter as I was sobering up.
Well,
just to give you a
Joe, can you hear
tiny
me?
bit, I can certainly hear you, Doctor.
Okay. Well, I was trying to make a comment here.
Please.
If you want to volunteer, it's pretty easy. You just hit the volunteer button and look for what. There's lots of different positions, and we will train you to do what you do.
I would love to call screen or I mean, I want to get into therapy, for Christ's sake.
Well, if you want to
If it
get
comes
in,
down to it.
What do you mean? You want to get
I'm a
therapy
painting
for yourself?
major. Oh, that's a done deal. I've been in therapy for 30 years.
Oh, okay. Well, we don't do therapy.
Well, so there's
no. I understand.
Yeah,
I understand.
So what I'm trying,
I'm fully not
to
qualified to.
Joe, let me finish, okay? What I'm trying to say is,
Please,
if you want to
I'm
volunteer,
sorry.
you can volunteer just by hitting the chat button, but also you can donate,
I will
which
do
you've
it.
just done, and I want to say thank you for doing that. But probably as
I want
important
to
as any of
thank
those
you.
is simply making sure that you let people know about us, repost our stuff, and let people
I talk you guys
know
up
that they can come to
constantly.
us.
I
Great.
talk you
Thank
guys
you.
up
Thank you for
constantly,
doing
both you guys and the ACA. Constantly.
Well,
no, you guys
you
have
can
been
stop.
seminal.
You can stop
both
talking up
in,
the ACA, but it's fine.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to bring up any bad reminiscence.
No, we're good, Joe. So here's the thing: when in the thing you mentioned that you're interested in volunteering for RFR, but you're concerned that you have some issues, that you might be
I
too
sure
anti-theist or too any of these other things. That I understand. Not everybody is well suited to be one of the trained, call screeners or
agents.
helpers or agents and volunteers.
Okay.
Yeah. But
it's a brand new world for me, so I'm delighted.
That's something that can be decided after you go and apply and talk to them. They'll coach you through stuff. And if it turns out that you don't actually have, the right aptitude or attitude for that, then there's potentially other areas where you can volunteer outside of that.
I will say I have an awful attitude. So I don't know if that would help or not. But no, I'm just kidding.
Can't know until we get you in and have folks start talking with you.
Right.
That sounds outstanding.
And
it's a plan.
Our training's pretty rigorous training. We don't let anybody touch
So it's why I'm volunteering.
Cool.
I'm fully there for it.
Well, thanks for the call, Joe. I appreciate it. And yeah,
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks a shitload.
Oh. And right back at you. All right. We have William in pronouns are they them from is it Arkansas?
Yeah, it's Arkansas.
There was a pop quiz type question that came up with name the US states that begin and end with A, and that messed up my head with regard to the abbreviations. But thanks, William, for waiting. You had a question related to individuals. Well, it kind of ties in with your dad, so welcome.
My dad was raised Catholic here in Arkansas, and one of the things is like he was often taught basically his work was associated with like his worth as a man, essentially, and so he became a workaholic and such. And I watched him, like he also had clinical depression. He would drink a fifth of whiskey every like 2 nights, like literally going to buy another one every other night.
Wow.
So he was a very functional alcoholic, unfortunately, but he passed away about 4 years ago now. And he and I managed to get through to him at one point about his depression, because he was also taught, depression, bad, just work harder kind of thing, essentially. And I got through to him with his depression by going, hey, Dad, look, the brain is part of the body, right? He's like, yeah. And legs are part of the body, yeah. Legs sometimes don't work, right? And we sometimes have to, give someone a wheelchair if their legs don't work, right? Would you fault someone who still has legs, but their legs don't work for using a wheelchair? No. I'm like, okay, so why do you fault someone for going to seeing a doctor about the brain and about their brain chemistry and getting medication to help potentially parts of the brain that don't function right? He's like,
Sure.
Okay, I didn't think of it like that, but yeah, that makes sense. And when he passed away, my aunt, after cleaning out his house, his sister, she actually found an appointment written down for a psychiatrist he had made, for a local psychiatrist, which actually made me very happy to hear, because that was one of the last conversations I had with him, and I managed to get that through to him, kind of break through that baggage that he had. And I was
That
just
is
wondering,
a really common theme.
yeah, it's an unfortunately common theme, and it sucks. It sucks all the way around, And basically, I was wondering, I want to help as much as I can to make sure maybe someone else doesn't have to go through that, where they won't think they have to basically throw their lives away to their job, which isn't necessarily bad if it's done properly, but he would actually drink a lot harder than normal, and that's saying something if he did not have a job. Considering how much he already drank, that's impressive. So do y'all have any suggestions on that?
Well, my question would be, his troubles are over, but it sounds like you're still considering trying to process that relationship.
Yeah, I am. I'll admit that.
Okay. And how are you dealing with that?
At this point, I just kind of, I don't really have a good method. I'm just, doing what I can, letting myself feel what I feel, especially since his birthday is coming up. Telling myself on those days that even if I'm not okay, that's okay to be not okay right now, and that it will be better eventually. Essentially, I've talked to my therapist. I kind of keep with my friends that I live with, so that I'm not alone, because I get dumber when I get alone as far as my own health, and I sometimes don't trust myself on alcohol or stuff when I do that kind of thing. So I try to avoid.
Do you have thoughts of self-harm?
No, not anymore. I managed to. I'm on some good antidepressants, and I've got a lot of that under control at this point. I used to.
It sounds like depression kind of runs in the family.
It does.
Statement
runs on both sides.
Okay. Good. Well, we see this a lot. You see, of course, it comes out. It's expressed in other ways through maybe drug addiction or depression or alcoholism. It doesn't matter. Well, it does matter, but it's still it's a pattern you see across. But I would just be concerned, William, that you take care of yourself and have a good therapist. Are you happy with your therapist? Do you think you're making progress with your therapist?
Well, I'm happy with. At this point, I don't have a therapist. I'm still on the waiting list because I'm on Medicare and such. So I'm still waiting for a therapist to open up whatever slots or whatever Arkansas has to do. But I have a good psychiatrist at the very least who also listens to me, and I have good friends who, you know, they help me along. They keep their eyes out on me and around these times. You know.
Okay, great. Well, are you getting how often do you exercise? How often do you get out? How do you see the trees and smell the flowers?
At this point, I try to go out. I go out at least once a week, every Friday, to our library where there's this D&D group that meets up. So we'll get together, we'll play, we'll have a little 2-hour session, and there you go, run by our library. And I try to go out, like to a park or something. Exercise, not as much. I'm overweight and I have a bad knee, so it hurts. And I've been trying to do it more though. You know.
Okay. How much is the religion?
I get better at that.
How much is religion involved in all this for you? How much is religion involved in all this for you?
I'm an atheist. I was a neo-eclectic pagan for a good while, but after for a little bit, it was really into the pagan aspect, the pagan worship. When I was 16, I worshipped Artemis and Athena. That's kind of how I got into paganism, and then after a while, it just kind of stopped being a thing. And then finally, to be honest, I actually heard Matt's argument against another pagan caller, and it was the exact same arguments I used. And I was like, okay, I can't really refute that. You know? And
how much
the good thing
involved? Do you know about the various secular sobriety groups?
I know some of them. I don't know any around here though.
Okay. Well, they don't have to be around here because you can join them online these days. So all I'm going to say is if you're worried or concerned about your own potential abuse of alcohol or anything related to that, you might look into secular sobriety. Not one of those other groups, not because of the alcohol, because the concept.
Luckily, I don't drink anymore.
What? Listen to me. I'm not saying that's the issue.
Yeah.
I'm saying the concept.
No, I know.
The concepts they teach are really important, and they will supplement any therapy that you are getting or will get. And I don't know if you're a secular therapy project, but our therapists are probably,
heard about it.
Yeah, they're very good, and they're very sensitive about all sorts of issues that most therapists may or may not be aware of, especially with respect to atheists or secular people dealing with addiction issues. And just because a person doesn't drink doesn't mean they don't still have the notion, the ideas.
To be clear, I was not the alcoholic. Dad was. I just want to make sure that was clear.
Yeah, that is very clear. But children of alcoholic learn shit from their parents. That's what I'm trying to.
Oh yeah, no, I get that. But I avoid at this point because of my diabetes. I avoid alcohol anyway. If I'm going to spike my blood sugar, I'm going to do it for cake. It tastes better.
Good for you. Good choice.
Yeah,
I prefer
cake tastes better.
I prefer pie myself.
Pie's good too. Good pie, good cake.
Right.
Yeah.
So getting back to the original question, where you were, you wanted to see what you could do to potentially help others, not have to go through what your dad went through, the detrimental effects of religion there. Obviously, recovering from religion is one of the primary organizations I'd recommend to do that. And so becoming potentially a volunteer with RFR would be one of the ways that you could do that. I don't know what else you're specifically looking for as far as recommendations or anything. Yeah. But I'd highly recommend.
I'll volunteer if I can.
Yeah, I'd recommend reaching out to them, see if you are eligible to be a volunteer, and if it's the type of thing that makes sense for you. It may not.
Many of
Will
our
do.
volunteers report
Yeah.
that it's a healing experience simply to be a volunteer. Helping other people is healing for them as well. But Life Ring. Life Ring is a really good one. Secular Sobriety is another one. There's like 3 or 4 different ones too, but you can look them up.
Yep. I
Sounds like
recommend
you're dealing with.
reaching out for that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, William.
All right. No problem. Y'all have a good day.
Cheers. Thanks. All right. When Darrell, I promised we'd do this, and I don't know. I'm going to assume that Arden may have a graphic ready or something. But earlier you mentioned the billboards, and I want to make sure that since somebody in chat was nice enough to remind me after I asked to be reminded, what's going on with recovering from religion and these billboards?
Well, our viewers may know that in Hammond, Indiana, there's a gigantic church called First Baptist Church of Hammond, Indiana, and it's like 5 or 6, I don't know how many campuses all around the United States. It's got over 10,000 members, and it's been going on for decades, of course. But for the last 20 years or so, there's been all sorts of sexual abuse and sexual grooming by the leadership of the Hammond First Baptist Church of Hammond. I had finally caught up with them, and many scandals kind of put together. And then when that lawsuit started flying, all sorts of actual criminal stuff is involved, I guess. And then a documentary was made about all these scandals called Let Us Pray, Prey. Right. And we have seen this happening. I mean, what day of the week is there not a new scandal in a church? It's just 7 days a week. And we started saying, these people, what?
Just the days that end in Y.
Oh, okay. Well, so we have to thinking these people are in a lot of pain. They are hurting. I saw people crying on television over the pain their minister has caused them because they believed this minister was a messenger from God, and now they find out he's had affairs with 3 or 4 different women, or he's groomed a 14-year-old girl or boy. Anyway, we just said, well, enough's enough. Let's start raising awareness if we're financially capable of doing it. And last year, Matt, you actually helped us, among other people, to raise specific funding just to put up billboards. And since that time last year, we put up 3 different billboards, 1 in Huntsville, Alabama. And then recently, just about 2 weeks ago, we put a second one up, which you can see on your screen right now, next to Hammond, First Baptist Church of Hammond, Indiana. And we're hoping to raise awareness of church abuses through this billboard. Now, we know that one billboard in front of one church isn't going to cause a big stink. But if you go to IMGUR, the website, you'll see that almost 40,000 people have seen that. So and we just put a press release out today, along with a second billboard that's not showing here. We put a second billboard up today, and it's right next to the damn church. You can't get into the church parking lot without seeing it. So we're going to see what this has, what kind of effect. We don't want to waste our money if it doesn't have an effect. But we've already gotten phone calls and chats from people needing help. So we think it's money well spent. It's certainly raising awareness of recovery from religion and that there's help out there. You're not alone, and that's our big, as you know, that's our big motto. You're not alone. We're here to help. Thanks for showing that, Arden.
No problem.
That's why Arden gets paid the big bucks. And I'm not getting paid a thing for today. All the donations today are going to Recovering from Religion, as are the donations this weekend, as we're part of this big fundraiser. If you look down there below chat right now, already in the first hour or first 57 minutes of this show, we have hit $836 out of the $35,000 goal. $836. And we still, believe it or not, despite the fact that there are theists in chat, We still don't have a theistic caller. So I'm going to do something. Well, I don't know if this will even work, but I'll give $50 to Recovering for Religion for each apparently genuine theist caller that we get over the next hour. And what we'll do, just to make sure that I'm not getting trolled to bankrupt me, is if you're a theist and you're willing to call in and genuinely present a defense of your belief and engage in a back and forth with Daryl and myself for, a few minutes at least, and Chad is convinced that we had an honest conversation with an honest theist, I'll give $50 to RFR every time that happens for the next hour.
Dang,
Dun, dun,
thank
dun.
you.
In the
That's
meantime,
really generous.
well, it may not work out as all that generous because the theist may not want me to give him money to RFR. It's kind of a way to figure out, do they want to try and bankrupt me? Because if enough people called in the next hour, you could probably do it. I'm pretty broke at the moment, but we'll do it that way. Matthew in South Carolina, pronouncing him, wants to talk about whether or not he's ever going to truly be able to deconvert or deconstruct. So welcome, Matthew. What's going on? You're on with Darrel Ray and myself.
I thought I had gotten removed when I first heard the beep. But
Nope, you're live.
Yep. All right. Okay. So here's what I'm gonna say. So here's what I mean by deconvert. So I'm just gonna be honest. So I do accept myself as an atheist. I do genuinely live and act as if there is no, in the sense of I oftentimes compare God, or when I refer to him, sometimes I think of him as Big Brother, as Christopher Hitchens called him. But to get to the point, there are times where I feel guilt for not praying. I sometimes get afraid that if I don't pray for this person, that it has something bad happening, then something bad's going to happen to them, and it's going to be my fault. God's going to, something's going to do something to them, or maybe Lucifer is going to do something, or something like that. And sometimes I genuinely get fears of invoking supernatural forces, that can cause harm to others simply by just once. And the thing is, sometimes I get scared about the idea of because the thing is, my intrusive thoughts they'll kick in and tell me, if I don't pray, oh, you want something bad to happen to this person, you want something, and I'm like, no, that's not how I feel. I don't feel that way. Human suffering is part of the reason why I left religion in the first place. I can't take it. And another thing is this, it's but there's some part of me that's so scared. There's some part of me that's so scared I don't pray. There's a fear that if I do pray, to tell you something, a relative of mine passed away years ago. He was a non-believer, and recently I've kind of come to accept the idea. Well, not accept the idea, but just this is something that's kind of kept me away from religion. Is if I were to accept the Christian or Islamic religion, I would have to believe that my great grandfather is in hell, and not only that, by the logic of both of those religions, it would be a good thing that he's in hell, and it is the second best thing that he got, and it's something that he had coming. Under the logic of both of those religions, that's something I would have to believe. So hell no, I'm not accepting that. But there's just something about me that gets scared of But so there's that, with this desire. I'm if I do pray, then I'm going to be disrespecting my great grandfather. I'm going to be accepting the notion that he's in hell.
Matthew, can I interrupt you here?
Yes,
let
please.
me help you explore this a little bit. You've given me a whole lot of data, and let me begin by saying, no, thank you for giving me the data, because it'll help.
Thank you.
Let's just say that. So, if I could give you a way to tap into our phone lines, and you could just listen to a phone call, any phone call on any day, 80% of the phone calls would sound almost exactly like what you just talked to us about.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's an incredibly common problem.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody has been indoctrinated, deeply indoctrinated with a belief structure, belief system, it doesn't just go away when you decide it's all bullshit. I like to say you can leave religion, but religion doesn't leave you. In fact, that's why I wrote my whole book, The God Virus, to help explain why people can't get rid of these intrusive thoughts. Let me stop
another
there
thing
and
is
ask,
like,
how's that?
sorry,
Go ahead.
sorry. Well, just to add something, queer rage. I am gay, and I spent time not wanting it to be true and shit like that. I didn't want to accept this, and that did not do me any good. And I still get pissed about like the shit that people like me get in society. It's so like annoying, and like it's not just that. It's like, and truth be told, I've wanted to like adopt kids when I'm older, and truth be told, I want to keep them away from religion when I'm older, just because I don't want them to go through what I don't want them to be indoctrinated into this stuff and go through what so many other people have gone through. I don't want, it's not just that, like, I'm scared that one side of my family doesn't know that I'm gay or I'm an atheist. Well, one knows that I guess they know I've been questioning, but they don't know that I have deconverted, and they don't know that I'm gay, and I'm scared some of them may cut me off entirely if I tell them this.
You're in
And
like
okay,
17
so
closets.
let me hold on here a second. Yeah, exactly, man. You realize how many times you've told us that you're afraid?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
There's a lot of fear there. That's a lot of fear. What do you want to do with that fear? You want to live the rest of your life in that fear?
No.
Or do you have a
I
plan?
don't.
Do you have some ideas or plans on what you'd like to do to... Fear can be a motivator too, Being pissed off can be a good thing. I'm pissed off about what religion's done to a lot of people. That drives me to do what I do. And I'm not saying you have to do what I do, but let's find a way for you to take that fear and use it productively.
And I was going to say my therapist, she's like, given her, like, she's accepting of, I've been fortunate to find someone who I think, I don't know if she is religious or not, but either way, she's accepting of my atheism, and she is sympathetic towards it. And I've been lucky to find that.
And how has she helped you?
So I told her the other day that, like, at the end of the day, like, I told her, hey, I want to come out to that side of the family, and I told her honestly, if they're not gonna if they're not, I've honestly thought, if they're not gonna love me for who I am, right? Like if I don't want to live a lie. I want to be genuine with them. I'm not gonna pretend to be something I'm not. Like, no, and no one can make me do that. At the end of the day, if they're not gonna if they're gonna cut me off, they're gonna ghost me because of this, then, as much as I hate to say this, because I love them all a lot, like, maybe I just didn't need them in my life, period.
Right.
But it's not just, I mean,
so
there's a lot more nuance that.
What I hear you saying is you've built your life. There's quite a bit of your life being built around what other people think and whether they'll judge you or not. So that's a hell of a lot of energy you are taking to give to other people. Whether they reject you or accept you, you don't even know yet. And yet you spent the majority of this phone call telling us how much they control you or how much you're afraid of them. So my question is your therapist helping you deal with this fear, helping you rechannel it, helping you deal with some of the trauma? I hear trauma. I hear somebody that's scared shitless because of some traumatic events that happened in your past.
Okay, so I will say that, we're not specifically focused, we haven't really got into that. I don't know but she told me this, like, she told me something, to paraphrase, something like, Matthew, here's the thing that's going to happen. There's going to be people who do and don't accept you. She said, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because she's told me that you're a math. Someone in the chat told me to rip up the Band-Aid. My parents know I'm gay, but like one side of the family just doesn't. My dad's side, my dad and all them know. Well, my dad knows. My mom's side of the family knows, but my dad's side of the family doesn't know. But she told me, like, Matthew, you're an awesome person. You're a good person. You ultimately that just live other people's happiness is not your responsibility.
Well, those are all good advice. I can't argue with any of that. I just, and I'm not your therapist, and I don't have time to work with you today, but let me just say that there are very specific protocols that a good therapist will know how to work with to help you not understand the fear. Let me tell you this. The fears that you have today were instilled in you when you were 3, 4, 5 years old. Those don't go away. The intellectual piece of you didn't develop until you were 13, 14, 15. And those two are still in your brain, and they reside next to each other, but they don't cooperate with each other. These are neural pathways. You've been telling me all about your neural pathways for fear. Religion loves to use fear, as do many other ideologies. Ideologies love to capture people through fear. That's why culture is so effective. So what I would say is go back to your therapist and ask her, are there some techniques? There's some really good techniques for cognitive behavioral techniques. There's mindfulness techniques.
I think we got a book on that, on cognitive behavioral therapy.
Well, I hear you struggling and searching. You're searching right now. And I think you can find what you're looking for, but it's going to take outside help. It will take a good therapist. So go ask your therapist about this. And I think you have a plenty of awareness. You're obviously really intelligent, and you've thought this stuff through. So it's not like this is news to you. You just need somebody to kind of hold your hand and guide you through some new exercises, some new methodologies, so that you can take control. This is your only fucking life you're ever going to have, Matthew. So you take charge of your life. And, the rest will fall in place once you've been able to do that. But you do need some outside help.
Thank you.
If you're just looking for, like, I don't think you are, but kind of as a half joke, half not joke, if you're just looking for some older dude to give you permission, go, therefore, be gay, be atheist, be out, tell everybody the second you're comfortable, because if you've already decided that you're going to be you and nobody can make you not be you and there's nothing for you to hide, and if you're on, I heard you right from the beginning of the call when you were talking about, you have these intrusive thoughts when you don't pray because, is it like, do you wish harm on them? You already know that you don't. You respond that you don't. There's a part of your brain that you're struggling with. And whether that's something that is you or was done to you, continuing to engage with your therapist on those fronts can help you get more and more comfortable. In many cases, it just takes time. There are people who've been, atheistic and out of religion for decades who still struggle with nightmares about hell and intrusive thoughts about this. And there's the what if. What if I was wrong? Because one thing religion's going to do is, and in particular Christianity and a number of denominations, it's going to use this guilt cycle of saying, you think you had an intellectually rigorous reason to stop believing and reject it and go out and live your life. But how do you know you didn't just reject it because you're gay? How do you know that you didn't just rationalize all that because you wanted to sin? And the answer is, so fucking what? Even if you rationalized it, nothing's going to change the fact that you're gay. And if your entire argument was that religion says I'm wrong to be who I am and I don't agree, that's enough. It's enough to give yourself permission to live your life. And it's enough that you don't need to know the Bible backwards and forwards. And you don't need to know philosophical arguments. You don't need, what you need to know? You need to know who you are and who you're willing to be around everybody. And then be it.
Thank you. I just want to say, Dr. Ray, I appreciate what you did. You are an amazing person. And Matt, I just want to say that for me, like, you are a very amazing person. You're a very influential figure in the atheist community, and I am grateful truly for the work that you've done. And I am grateful that you have been willing to help stand up to this BS that we have perverting our society. And I am grateful that you and people like Dr. Ray and all of those other skeptics that came before me have, paved the way for me to be able to express this. And, I'm just very grateful for what you guys have done. And, I think it's been an honor to speak with both. I think you're both very amazing people, and I greatly appreciate the work that you do.
Thank you so much. All right.
Matthew,
keep going.
next time you're feeling down, get on the phone or get on the computer and chat in with Recover from Religion. We're always happy to talk to you, and you'll hear lots of affirming stuff from our trained agents. Thanks for calling.
You're gonna be fine, man.
What I was gonna say, when you talked about rationalizing it, the night that I officially just decided to let myself be, I was continuously thinking, oh yeah, like, how does this hurt anyone? And I was like, it doesn't. There's no way it could really be wrong. And then the same night I left my faith, like, I just remember telling myself in my head, referring to Yahweh specifically, I was like, he's not real. Let him go. He can't hurt you. And that same night I came out to some of my friends. I just want to say that for me, that is it was honestly exhilarating to just kind of almost feel, it felt like I was getting a chip off my shoulder, and I'm grateful for what you guys have done. So I'm going to get off the line now so I don't take any more of your time, but thank you very much. I greatly appreciate this call. Thank you.
Thanks, Matthew.
And one little last final addendum, even if Yahweh were real, it wouldn't change anything at all about who you are and what you deserve, including what you deserve from a God. So.
Yeah. I mean,
thanks so much.
Fuck that guy. I don't much care for him.
Yeah, I'm with you. One. Take care. All right, so we got a theist caller who's calling to take me up on my my offer. So let's figure out if in fact Rem here, Rem pronouns they them from Colorado is a theist, and as long as Rem is genuine, Recovering from Religion is about to get $50 from me. So what God are you advocating for defending here, Rem?
Samantha Badra, I suppose. There could be a number. There's a number of devas, at least outlined in my religion, which is Buddhism.
You broke up there. I couldn't quite hear it. But...
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah. So my religion is Buddhism. So according to the Buddha, there is Hinduism before that, obviously. All right. Can you hear me?
I can. The audio quality is a little off. You might like move your mouth slightly away from the phone or whatever. But so you're a theistic Buddhist, because a good chunk of the Buddhists that I've interacted with are atheistic.
Yeah, I'm going off of ancient sutras and stuff that tend to outline that there is a pantheon of devas, and that is a state that you can be reborn as. Also, there's other states that you can be reborn as, such as pretas, hell dwellers, freaking asuras, and animals. Anyway,
okay.
those are
let's do this.
States.
Let's do this, Rem, because whether you identify as a theist or not, I'll just go ahead and count this as a call that's going to get me to donate the money, because it says here that you're willing to defend the notion that God potentially exists. But I don't really care whether there's a God that potentially exists. I don't even know if it's a possibility. But if you actually believe that you're going to be reincarnated, I'd like to know what the justification is for believing that, because I not only do I not see evidence for it, but anything that comes close to a soul and an afterlife and an additional life or whatever else, those things to me are like almost completely obviously false. So I'd love to hear what the justification is for reincarnation from your perspective.
Right. Well, you don't view self in the traditional sense. We're more like a pattern of waves that kind of continue on through death into our next lives.
At least that's how it's described to most of us.
Well, when you say into
So-
our next lives, the language there, like, what's your next life going to be like, and how is it in any way yours?
Well, that's kind of an unfalsifiable claim, because you can't really remember your previous lives unless you're an enlightened one.
How do you know that
you know,
enlightened ones can remember? Wow, this is wild, because so you believe in reincarnation, but you're not convinced that you can know that you've been reincarnated unless you're an enlightened one. How do the enlightened ones know that they've been reincarnated?
Well, it's because of the teachings that they share that, you know, I know it's a fallacy to say that one thing doesn't, you know, prove another thing. But ultimately, I just kind of go off of, you know, the accuracy and validity of the teachings, you know, and how accurate they are, you know, to basically, to reaffirm my, you know, faith for, you know, per se, like my, you know, to solidify my belief in.
So am I
In that.
understanding right that you're convinced that there are enlightened ones who are aware that they've been reincarnated, and that the only way you can tell is because of their teachings?
Well, you know, obviously they have stories, and you know, the Buddha had a number of stories. Like there's a whole sutra about, you know, his past lives.
No.
So yeah.
Well, what is it about their teachings that is sufficient to confirm for you that they're enlightened?
Oh, you can. There's a number of things, like the you know, 12. There's 12. You know, there's the. I'm sorry. I'm really not too qualified to discuss this. I'm only a lay follower. So
I get it.
Anyway,
but I mean,
yeah.
Even as a lay follower, something has convinced you that there's something real here, and I'm just trying to figure out what it is. I mean, if you're not in a
Right.
position to you know, defend it, that's fine. I'll always appreciate the honesty more than anything else. But it's like, if I didn't it's like somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, we want you to participate in this, you know, join us in this particular Buddhist tradition," I would want to know why. And then I would want to know how we can know that there's anything true in it. And so you're making a bunch of statements um, that don't agree with my understanding of the world. Like, my understanding of the world is that there's no evidence that reincarnation occurs, or that you're going to have an afterlife, that you're going to have some other life. And so it's when I hear somebody say, you'll be reincarnated, but you won't know it. So first of all, not only is that, as you noted, potentially unfalsifiable, but there's another word for that, which is bullshit. Because if I won't remember it, then I'm not me. The fundamental things that make me me are this specific conscious awareness and the collection of memories and desires and all of that. If I got hit on the head and it completely changed my personality and wiped my memory, I would still be the same physical entity, but I wouldn't be the same person. But even to whatever extent we could say that that was the same person, because all the physical things are done. If you were to take my pattern and move it up, I guess is how you were suggesting. There's no mechanism for that. There's no way to demonstrate that it occurs, that it has ever occurred. There's no way to demonstrate who's enlightened and who's not. And so it seems to me, and this is not a slam on you, but it seems to me every time I hear this, that what's happened is there are people who really like the idea of connectedness and feeling spiritual and having guidance from gurus of some sort. And because they don't know and understand these things and they don't have a good model of how this works, they're willing to go with anybody else's model as long as it feels okay and doesn't seem to be doing harm, and if they feel like they're learning something. And the problem with that is that you could learn something from anyone, but all of these religious ideas come with good ideas that are towing on a truckload of harmful negative shit. And so rather than say, "Ooh, I'm a Buddhist, and I believe in this, this, and this," and then when somebody says, "How do you know any of that's true?" You're stuck. Why not just say, I'm a secularist, but I do like some things from Buddhism and from I Ching and from Christianity and from Scientology. Well, I'm probably not anything from Scientology, but it's that would seem to me to be preferable to actually publicly saying, I believe things that I can't demonstrate that I have a good reason to believe.
I agree, actually. Yeah, you might have just converted me to secular Buddhist, because there's a number of systems in Buddhism that I totally agree with. But the unfalsifiable stuff, I've always been on the fence about it. Reincarnation. Although there is a way to falsify that. Like I've never really heard of anyone, at least that I know, that has displayed that. And the whole God thing, being a God and all this other, I don't know about that. But
All
thanks for your input.
Well, you managed to get $50 out of me. I'll let Daryl finish this one up.
Sure.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Rem, for getting him to give us $50. We appreciate that. For that, you get extra breath. See, I believe in the Flying Spaghetti Monster, so we're going to give you an extra beer in FSM heaven when it's time. Let me just say this: as we know, even a stopwatch is right twice a day. Well, we know that for centuries of working on this as human beings, we occasionally come up with techniques and methods that actually have a positive effect. Meditation, for example, it's pretty clear that certain types and practices are good. But it's the bullshit and baggage that comes behind that with some religions, including Buddhism and Hinduism. And what I would just say is, let's take the good stuff. And what psychology has done, we've actually taken some of the good stuff right out of Buddhism and said, this whole mindfulness thing that comes out of Buddhism seems to have real value for many people, especially with certain mental conditions. So take what's good and practice it, use it. It may be 2,500 years old, but that's okay. It still works. And then let's add some other things, because now we actually have scientific evidence of how that works. But Buddha had no clue why it worked. He just knew it worked, or at least he worked for him and his followers. So we know that you can do an MRI and see people's brain waves, but Buddha didn't know there was such a thing as brain waves. In fact, until about 50 years ago, we didn't know there was brain waves, or maybe longer than that. But anyway, you get what I'm saying.
Could be.
So I see too many people jumping on the Buddhist bandwagon or other, especially New Age stuff, because it uses scientific language like waves. Well, show me a New Age wave. I don't know what it looks like. A wave should be measurable, and I can measure brain waves, and I can tell if you're in a meditative state or not, an altered state of consciousness or not. It's scientific. So follow the science, and I think you'll actually find some great techniques that may look like Buddhism, but you don't have to buy into the Buddhism shit to have good mental health. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
And the second you get good evidence for any of the beyond nature claims of Buddhism, call back and let me know, because if they got anything, I'd like to know it just as much as I like. Matter of fact, I don't even mention Buddhism that often, because most of the Buddhists I know are atheists. But there's still claims there that need to be justified before I could believe them.
I understand. Thank you.
Thanks, Rem.
All right. All right.
Matt, you may remember his name, but we have a person in the secular community. He's one of the leaders, or has been. But he espouses secular Buddhism. Can't remember his name right now, but I've listened to some of his lectures, and they're pretty darn good. I enjoy his lectures. Nothing
There's a number
supernatural
of things
there.
like that. I get
Yeah.
nervous when people start talking about ancient wisdom, because
Oh, yeah,
generally
right.
speaking, the very notion of ancient wisdom is good old days thinking, and the good old days are never what they were.
Yeah.
We are living in the best old days right now in almost
Yep.
every possible measurable statistic or bit of information. But
Yep.
I want a couple notes because we got a couple callers I want to get to, but I just heard we are in the midst of a massive thunderstorm here. So if power goes out, the show will go down since both the producer and myself are in this room. But I live on the grid with the airport, and we're usually the last ones to lose power. So I'm not anticipating that. But boy, is it loud out there right now.
We had 3 tornadoes around my house within 15 or 20 miles last night. And
This wasn't a competition, Daryl.
well, yeah, it
I'm
is.
just
Kansas is
teasing.
here to beat Texas.
You got 3
Kansas will
tornadoes.
beat Texas. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
it was
no.
120 tornadoes have been spotted in the last week. And this
Yep.
series of storms just keeps coming through.
No, I grew up there. I mean, Oklahoma's bad, but our area up there near Kansas City and a ways out from there. I remember the night my dad had his gallbladder removed, my dad's father came over to sit with us while my mom was at the hospital with my dad. And it was a massive storm. And there, if you looked out the window of the hospital, there were 3 tornadoes just doing a little dance, just hop, hop, hop,
Wow.
hop, 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 hop. And
Whoa.
it's the only time I ever saw my grandfather visibly shaken. He was, he was unfazable in all of my interactions with him. But that night, it was very clear. And there may even have been language that was completely foreign to him as an adult, because I think he was about to shit his pants at one point. All right. Continuing on. Calling in from Colorado, Jaylen, an atheist, wants to talk about setting aside beliefs and consequences that arise from that. So, Jaylen, you're on with Dr. Darrel Ray and me. Welcome. Are you there? Oh, no. I hate it when somebody's on hold for a long time and then it's possible that they have fallen asleep.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I hear you now,
Yes.
Jaylen. Welcome back.
Okay, sorry about that. So my question is, with the people in my life, I have starting to make, I say I see them as good people, except their Christian values make them bigot or a racist. So when it comes to viewing these people from a Christian lens, they would say gay people are good people, but they do these sins. How much of what should we do when we're viewing Christian people is not just similar to them viewing a homophobic or a gay person as being wrong in their actions?
One more time?
Are you
sorry.
referring to hate the sin but not the sinner kind of thing, or hate the belief but not the believer? Is that what you're trying to get at?
Yeah, when we talk about Christians being good, they're good people, but they have these negative belief systems. How much of it? How much of us are we doing to them the thing that we think is wrong when they do it to us?
Well, one of the differences is if first of all, I think that most of them, if you told them they were being bigoted or prejudiced, they'd deny it. That's one of the most common things. But in reality, if you're if you try to do the love the sin or hate the sin thing, saying, oh, I love the gay people, I'm just, opposed to their sin. You're already buying into a notion that who they are and what they do is in fact wrong. When it's not, when you don't have any reason, no justified reason to do that. That's where bigotry and prejudice come from. You're making a judgment before such a judgment is warranted. If we're calling someone out for being bigoted or being prejudiced, we're making the judgment after that is warranted. Like after they've actually done the thing that we are pointing to and saying, that's bigoted. So there is a slight difference there. It's like the question about, should we be intolerant of intolerance type thing, or should we be tolerant of tolerance? And, there are points where someone has removed themselves from an equitable social contract on a particular contract on a particular front. And so, if someone is berating someone because they're gay or because they're black or whatever it is, just going at them, it's, how could there possibly be an objection to calling them out? We should be, intolerant of hateful, harmful acts.
Do you see some specific behavior?
Yeah, I agree
that
on. Hey, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's all right. There's a delay and it's very difficult. So one of the things we just all got to get used to, and I'm starting to get more used to it, is if you're on a point and somebody starts talking, just kind of keep going, and everybody will figure it out.
Okay. Jaylen,
Yeah, there's
I
not
don't
like
know
a
if you can-
specific kind of thing that I was like thinking of, but just trying to like think about like they have the belief that like homosexuality is a sin. Is the reason that we are opposed to that because it's actually not true, or is there like a deeper thing of like we're not going to judge people's beliefs? We're going to like try to like, how much should we separate their beliefs from them as an individual? Because like with being gay, that's more of like a part of who they are. And you could say the same thing about they are a Christian. That's a part of who they are.
Sure. You didn't choose things about yourself, and you don't choose your beliefs. However, if you have been confronted about your beliefs and do not change them in the light of new information, you are at a minimum responsible for that. You're basically saying, for whatever reason, I agree with this holy book or this God that witchcraft is immoral. And you're then going to take actions based on that belief. However, there is this social contract implied, which is your freedom to not like people who engage in witchcraft should also extend to them not being subject to your disapproval. You're free to express your disapproval, but you're not free to limit what their rights are. And so you begin with everyone having the same rights, and you begin limiting rights based on that. Where the bigotry comes in is when they are actively trying to either legally limit other people's rights or effectively limit other people's rights based not on the Constitution and a body of law, but on their particular preferred holy book. If the foundation for why they have a position is logically equivalent to because I do, then it's not deserving of any respect or consideration. They're still able to have it, but we should still be able to be called out, or they should still be able to be called out for that. So I don't know if there's an easy way to describe this, because there's a way to view this as, oh, you don't have any grounds for saying these people are being bigoted because when you do, you're the one engaged in bigotry. You're just bigoted against Christian beliefs. No, that's like saying, when I point out that you don't get to run around punching people and I tackle you to stop you from punching them, that's like claiming that I'm the one that's being violent. I'm responding to violence with the minimum effort required to stop it. And if they can stop by pointing and laughing, cool. And if it can stop by calling it out and making it publicly, viewed with derision, cool. If it takes more than that, then it takes more than that. It's yeah. I almost went down a different sidetrack there, but I probably shouldn't.
Yeah, that makes sense. So like with that, just like a slight different angle to this, like, how much should I be willing to, like, I know it's a personal thing, but like when it comes to somebody who I think is a good person, but has these kinds of beliefs, how much leeway should I give them of just saying like, you might believe these things, but that isn't who you really are, and just try to like keep the relationship with that person going instead of saying like, no, you are just like a racist. And it's like, you have these things that are piled up against you that I don't want to interact with.
Well, there's absolutely nothing wrong with saying, I understand what you believe. I don't want to be around you while you are holding those beliefs and acting on behalf of those beliefs. If you change your mind, I'm happy to spend time around you, but I need people in my life who are not negative influences on me and toxic influences on me and the people I love and the people I'm around. I need to be able to say if we're going to be friends, I need to be able to say to my other friends, hey, this is Joe. He's my friend, and not be sitting there wondering, is Joe getting ready to go on a tirade about the government conspiracy and Trump 24 and how the trans community is trying to destroy the world. It would be nice if I could be friends with Joe while he holds those views, but I can't, because now I would have to introduce Joe as, hi, this is Joe. We're friends for reasons other than his views on A, B, C, D, and E. Please don't, think that I'm approving of that or anything else. It's bizarre. And friendships, including and relationships and romantic relationships, have to be rooted in, to some extent, a mutual respect, not just agreeing to disagree, which is a phrase I fucking hate, but respecting who that person is and what that individual believes and advocates for is a part of who they are. The issue is, are they open to change on this? Are they open to considering that their views are problematic or flawed? Because if they are, then I still see value in maintaining that friendship and having the conversations that might bring them around or might bring me around, depending on what the issue is. But if they are doxastically closed to changing their views on certain things, I have enough people to interact with without keeping around a bunch of friends that think the other half of my friend group are degenerates who are deserving of hell. And the same goes for family, by the way.
Jaylen, I would say I have humanist values. You've used the term atheist about, whether we're doing X, Y, or Z as atheists, but that's really, atheism doesn't inform my values hardly at all. It's humanism that informs my values. And if you just look through some list, and there's several different lists of what humanism prizes up, I think you'll see that we have an obligation within our social framework to uphold values that enhance people's lives, reduce suffering. And that's the way I come at this issue. And if I find somebody who's increasing suffering, who is actively using their racist attitudes to harm other people, I feel obligated as a humanist to say something, do something. I also find it important to set boundaries with my friends. Here's what I will not do and I will not tolerate. I'm pretty quick to challenge someone who's transphobic. Pretty quick to challenge somebody who's racist or doing something like that. And what I found in my life is when Daryl says I don't appreciate that, I only have to say it one time. And most of the people get the message. They don't ever do that again in front of me, or they simply leave. They never come back, which is okay with me as well. I'm in charge of that. I'm in charge of making sure that people in my environment are safe. And I look at it as a safety issue. Emotional safety is not just physical safety. Anyway, that's my take.
Yeah, that makes sense. I agree with quite a bit of that. Going to ask like a quick clarifying question and then maybe a little extra.
Sure.
What about it is wrong when Christians say being like that they love gay people but hate being like the gay sin?
Sorry, what about it's wrong?
Yeah, because being gay is a normal sexuality that people can have, but from like a humanist perspective, they are basically abusing gay people by trying to convince them that they're like mentally ill and should be straight.
Yeah.
Is it wrong that they are saying a lie, or is it wrong by trying to separate their sexuality from them as an individual?
Both. I mean, if you're making an assertion that something is objectively wrong, you need to be able to demonstrate that. And if your only demonstration is God said so, okay, prove God said so. And then prove that what God says is moral or not. Or whatever their foundation is, they need to make the case for it. Until then, it's just their opinion. And what they're trying to do is impose their opinion on other people. And I mean, it's an absolute time waster. But the reality is that it's a smug superiority. They don't like that person. They don't love that person, and they don't love the sinner and hate the sin. There's no sin. The concept of sin is nonsense. And what they're saying is what you do is immoral. Okay, if that's your view, I don't need you around me. We don't need to interact. And then if you say, oh, but I love you. No, you don't. It is not possible for you to actually love me while thinking that, I'm a degenerate sinner that's deserving of hell. That's some weird category of love that doesn't make any sense to me.
There's no hate quite like Christian love.
Yeah, that's definitely right on. So when it comes to like taking that perspective of sorry. When I do you
let
think
me throw in something, Jaylen.
My view of, yeah, sorry.
Well, that's all right. That's right. This delay's bugging me too. Let me throw in something. Build on what Matt said a little earlier. You seem to be very concerned about the notion of sin. The very notion of sin, as Matt said, is absurd, and it's always tied to a very specific ideology. The sin you find in Islam is very different than the sin you find in Catholicism. The sin inside of Catholicism is different from the sin of evangelical Christians. Sin is really, it's very specific to any given ideology. So I think you're buying into this whole notion too much. Start off with the fact that humans are not sinful, humans are not broken. And anybody who says they are broken is wrong by definition. Humans are humans. There's no right or wrong or good or bad here. There's just humanity. And then if humans behave badly, let's challenge that. But you don't seem to be willing to challenge the whole notion of this. There is no such thing as sin with respect to anything, let alone human sexuality. Am I sinning by having glasses on? I mean, there's there's all sorts of things that could be sins. I am dressed, or the notion of sin has changed dramatically in the last 100 years in almost all religions. So if you were to talk about what was a sin in 1890, it could be very different from what it is today. They're all the time changing whatever the sin is.
The big thing, there's a bait and switch here where they are making a pronouncement about something someone else does or is, and they don't have a justification for it. What we should do is every time somebody says, well, what you said is a sin, or what you do is a sin, and I know this because of God, you should just take the whole thing again and say, what you're saying is that this clump of grass in your backyard speaks to you every morning and tells you what everybody else is doing wrong, and you are bound to agree with that clump of grass in your backyard. As absurd as that may sound, that's how absurd religion should sound. But we've spent millennia allowing religion to build up a false sense of respectability. And because of that, when somebody says, oh, it's my religion, or, oh, it's God, we don't look at them like they just said, oh, I've been listening to this clump of grass in my backyard. But we absolutely should, because it's on exactly the same grounds with regard to intellectual rigor and evidence. The clump of grass and whichever of the millions of proposed gods and unproposed gods they want to appeal to, they're all equally fucking useless and a complete waste of time. We should just be like, well, that's just your opinion, because it is. The problem is they're going to say, it's not just my opinion. That's what the Bible says. It's not just my opinion. That's what God says. And the answer should be, who fucking cares? Because I don't.
Yeah, I definitely am on board with that. I've been an atheist for a while, and I don't accept at all the idea of sin or any of the ways that religious people come up with morality. I think I'm trying to not fall into what I view as a trap of just saying back to the Christian, I love you, but not your things that I perceive aren't a part of you.
Yeah. I don't know that we have much more to add on this, Jaylen.
Like their Christian beliefs and stuff.
I don't know that we have much more to add on this, Jaylen. So take that as food for thought, because I only got 10 minutes left where people can force me to give money to RFR. And there's at least one, if not two, potential theists on the line that I'd like to get to, so that maybe I have to come out of my pocket a little bit more.
Thanks for calling, Jaylen.
I hope that gives you some food for thought. Keep digging in on it. All right. Dun, dun, dun. Let's see. Here we go. John is a theist from Washington, pronouncer him, calling in with a question for Dr. Darrel Ray. Welcome, John.
Hello. Well, how's it going?
Good, John.
Yeah, just a quick question for Dr. Ray. In your intro, you were talking about how men and religion and the construct of it was causing you to see the hypocrisy of the organization. You didn't really mention anything about God himself, or you didn't mention anything about some of the issues you might have had in the Bible. I assume you've read the Bible from cover to cover multiple times and spent a lot of time studying the Bible. Was it, in fact, the hypocrisy of the religion and the men that caused you to then turn on God, or was it did it all occur at the same time? I guess that's kind of a question I have for you.
Well, it's a good question. It was a journey. It wasn't one thing. But I will say, reading the Bible really helped a lot, because I found so much bullshit in the Bible. I couldn't believe it. I never was much of a believer in any part of the Old Testament, for sure. Genesis, I thought was useless, because I knew enough about biology by the time I was 12 years old to know that shark's teeth on the top of a mountain were there not because of some flood, as my aunt told me, but because of deposition of layers and layers of ocean bottom that has now since raised up in a tectonic orogeny close to the Rocky Mountains. So I knew all that stuff. In the Bible, there were so many different things in the Bible. For example, you can beat your slave as long as you don't kill him. If he dies within 3 days, you're responsible. But if he doesn't, you can sell your daughters into slavery if you want, or you can let a group of strangers rape your daughters so they won't be raped by these strange men that are here in this Sodom and Gomorrah area. There was just so much that made absolutely no sense. And then my minister would stand up and say, "Here's the lesson from Lot and his daughters," or Noah Noah getting his daughters pregnant, or getting whatever. The stories are rampant. I don't need to go into all those. You know them as well as I do. So, the Bible itself clearly was not written by any deity. Any deity that was worth his salt could write a much better book than that. So I don't know if that answers your question. I could go on for hours, but I won't.
Yeah. Well, it kind of leads me into a second question, if I could then. So if considering that you really weren't absorbed into the belief and the dogmas and the scripture and all the stories, does that mean, how would you rate your relationship with God as your time as a Christian? Did you feel like you fell in love with God? Did you?
I did not know how to fall in love with an invisible being. I don't have invisible friends. I don't love Santa Claus. I never loved the Tooth Fairy. And I just couldn't quite figure out when I would kneel down, and I did. I kneeled down to pray for years next to my bed, and never found or heard or sensed anything. And the people who said they could didn't seem to be any better than me. And they seemed to do just as many stupid things as I was doing when I was younger. And what their God told them sometimes seemed to be absurd and ridiculous. So, now, let me be clear. I don't think I was ever a good Christian. So I don't need to go there. I never claimed to be the best Christian. I never had a relationship. This relationship with God bullshit wasn't around when I was a kid. My church did not seem to preach that kind of stuff. It was a Protestant church, but not one of these evangelical ones. So this whole notion of relationship with God, it was more maybe a relationship with Jesus, but not with God. And I never could figure out where the Holy Spirit came into all this, and neither could anybody else. They could never seem to tell me, where's this Holy Spirit thing that keeps, except my Pentecostal folks. They seem to know it because they felt the Holy Spirit every time they started talking in tongues. And I thought, okay, that's pretty weird, but at least they got a solution. My church couldn't seem to give me. And then my Catholic friends, that was a whole nother area. Just knowing all these other ways of interacting was education. Let's just put it that way. But I'll stop there.
Okay.
What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I've taken my own journey. I'm definitely anti-religion. I will tell you that. I mean, up front, that I believe religion is one of the worst things on this earth. That said, I do view myself as a theist. I do believe myself as a believer. I was raised as a Christian. My father was actually the equivalent of a pastor, but when I was 19 and I went off to school, I became an architect, and I just kind of pursued my career thereafter, and actually didn't really go to church for many, many years. And for me, and I'll just tell you that there was like this nagging feeling about a relationship that I had with someone that I couldn't quite shake. And so that led me starting to come. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
if you had been born in Saudi Arabia and you had that nagging feeling, how would you act upon it?
I'd probably be Muslim.
If you were born in northern India and you had that nagging feeling, how would you act upon it?
I think in northern India, in India itself, I think I have a better chance to become Christian. But to your point, I would probably be more.
The goal is to be a Christian, or the goal is to figure out what this nagging feeling is.
Well, I guess there's where, not to go too far astray, but I've kind of come around after reading the Bible myself. A lot of times, it's Paul talks about the way. And it's more like a path, and he talks about those are being either excused or basically judged based upon their own. Yeah,
I know what Paul says.
So I think I don't know if it. I guess my point is it doesn't matter, right?
I know what Muhammad says, and it seems to be a little different than what Paul said. But have you read the Quran sufficiently to know what Muhammad wants you to do with your life?
I've read it once. I have. I can't. Okay. I couldn't recite it like the Bible, but I have read it.
Okay. And any other holy books? What study have you done to make sure that the God you've chosen, I don't know which God this is the one that's speaking to you, giving you this feeling?
I found probably the best helpful beyond the Bible. I've actually looked at the anti-Nicene Fathers writing. Justin Martyr.
Oh, good.
Some of the early. Yeah.
Have you read Tertullian? And
I have. Yep.
Origen. Okay. And those guys really hate women. Are you a woman hater?
I'm not, but I would argue, I guess, to your point. I mean, unless you showed me the phrase or something, I would say that, especially in the Greek scriptures, I wouldn't say that there's a lot of women hating. There certainly are some scriptures that could be taken that way.
I'm talking about Tertullian. That guy was about as misogynistic as you get, but he believed everything Paul said. I do not permit a woman to speak. Are you one of those Christians?
I am not. No.
Okay, so you don't agree with Paul on that count?
I would say that there is some.
I wonder what the criteria you use to pick and choose which parts you're going to accept or reject.
Well, in Paul, I guess to that point, I mean, you'd almost have to go by them one by one. I would say that I do get a general sense from reading the scripture for myself. Again, my own interpretation. I may not be right. I acknowledge that, but I would say that there's an overview of a respect for women, and I would say that Paul contradicted himself in that regard with Aquila and I forget the other name.
Priscilla and Aquila.
We're talking. Yeah, and there's several instances where he did, in fact, empower women. Even when he talks about ministerial service.
Does having respect for one woman, have anything to do with respect for women? Like, I love my mom, and I respect my mom, but that doesn't mean I respect women.
Well, I guess one way I would look at it, and again, this is my inference, I acknowledge, is that if you took the Mosaic Law view of women, and I agree that was a very harsh view, and then you took the Christian view, even Paul's view of women, that was a step up from that point. Perhaps the next step would even be beyond that, and maybe we're living that step now. Now, that's my inference. I realize that's not, I can't point to some scripture, but I would say that as far as what Paul wrote about women specifically, he seemed to go against the standard way you might interpret the scripture by itself. So he himself violated his own writing.
Well, hold on a second. There was no scripture.
Okay.
Paul. The New Testament was written years later, much later. So he wasn't violating that scripture. What scripture was he violating?
No, I'm talking about the one you mentioned where he says that I don't permit a woman to teach a man, and yet he appointed women teachers specifically for men later. In fact, he even outlined the qualifications for a ministerial servant in Timothy, where he actually specifically allowed it to be a woman. So I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
And it seems to me there's quite a bit of permission to own other people and treat slaves in a certain way. Is that okay? Is that within your Christian framework?
I don't, but I would also attribute some of that to, for an example, that when Jesus took away the right for a man to marry multiple women, he said, out of hard heart for Moses and the Israelites, he allowed that and he took it away. So I guess in that sense, I would say that it's a progressive thing that I
wait a
don't
minute.
believe
Hold on a
is
second.
permissible.
Herod had 15 wives, and Jesus never condemned that at all. So
No,
you're
well,
okay with
he did condemn it.
polygamy?
He did. Well, he did change the law, though. So he did say that was no longer permissible. And he also said, on top of it, he said it wasn't God's desire that men marry multiple women. He said that was not the intent. He said the intent was for one man to be with one wife. Yeah.
You're making a hell of a lot of excuses, but that's what I find in most. The fact is, it's pretty damn clear, and your own Bible is pretty clear. But why do you always have to make excuses? Why did you say yes? Why can't you just say, yes, it's okay to own humans. It's okay to treat slaves a certain way. It's okay to hate women. It's okay to restrict women's rights. Why can't? That's what your Bible says. Why can't you say it?
Well,
why are you hesitant?
Well, because I would say that you almost have to take each issue at a time. I mean, when you talk about slaves, for instance, just in the Mosaic Law, right? There was a difference between Jewish and non-Jewish slaves, and Jewish slaves had a condition about the Jubilee year. Non-Jewish slaves had the ability to become Jewish and receive the same release. So I mean, those were very unusual. I guess what I'm saying is not saying it's okay, but I'm saying if you put you took it in the time frame.
I'm wondering where it is that you think. I'm wondering where it is that you think Jesus changed the law so that it's one man, one woman.
All right, let me. Yeah, he said it very specifically. In fact, he said it's because of their hard hearts that they allowed. He allowed. Hold on. Well, it is. I can't recite it right now, so I don't want to.
You realize that it
is in the Bible. You can Google it. You can Google it. It's real. It's real easy.
You realize that
I have.
Christianity did not outlaw polygamy until after 325, the Nicene Creed. Polygamy was actively practiced among Christian communities.
Didn't outlaw it, but if you notice, even when I said between becoming a leader in the church in different ways, that was a requirement to become a leader in two different ways, that they be man or wife of one wife.
I believe it's in Titus. An elder must be a man of one wife. That's the only place in the New Testament that it doesn't even condemn polygamy. It's not permitted.
So
you realize
wow. So first of all, it's strange that you're going to try and argue for that the complete mistreatment of non-Jewish slaves could be ameliorated by them just deciding to become Jewish, in which case then they'd only be slaves until the year of Jubilee. But I need chapter and verse on Jesus coming out against polygamy, because in the entire time that I've gone through this, everybody who's tried to present chapter and verse has failed. A good chunk of them go to the teachings in Matthew 19 about divorce, which, while he does talk about a man and a woman, he doesn't say that that is the one and only right way, and at no point does he come out against polygamy. So if you're going to say that Jesus expressly came out against polygamy, I need to know chapter and verse, because I don't think that's the case.
Okay.
By the way, you also earned $50 for Recovering for Religion just for being a theist that called in before the 8 o'clock hour. So I already made that donation.
I'm glad.
And John, you are excellent. You are very respectful. I appreciated that. That was the requirement Matt had, and I appreciate you doing that.
No,
let me throw something. You may not have thought about this, John, but for the first 300 years or so, Christianity was going around the entire Levant, all around the Mediterranean, and proselytizing and converting people, of course. And a large number of those cultures were polygamous. And if you look, there's no prohibition until about 300 against polygamy among Christians. So what was happening was people like Paul were going and converting rich people because the Christians wanted to get the high, they went the high status people if they could get them. Christianity wasn't all peasants. Ultimately, it was pretty rich people, actually. And so they would convert these rich guys who had 5 wives. Well, what are you going to do when the guy says, yeah, I want to get baptized? Paul didn't say, well, you got to get rid of 4 of those wives. He didn't do that. None of his disciples, none of the people going around the Mediterranean converting rich people made them get rid of their wives. Well, it happened over a period of about 200 years where they would convert somebody. They let them keep their wives, and they'd say, but, your sons, when they get married, can only have 1 wife. And it took about 300 years for Christianity to finally become a monogamous religion. It was not a monogamous religion. It was a polygamous religion. Even the Jews were polygamous. As I said, Herod had 15 wives. Jesus never condemned that. Judaism did not condemn polygamy until about 1100. It was still practiced actively in many Jewish communities until the 800s. So this whole notion of Christian being monogamous is true for the peasant. It was not true for the rich person. Rich man always, of course.
But I would say but on that score, if it was enforced in the structure of the authority of the church and to reach out for a higher office, it was a requirement. Meaning, whether you're rich or not, you couldn't. Let's put it this way: you couldn't be in any authoritative position in the early church and have more than 1 wife.
That's true. And some of them even had to be celibate if they were picked.
Yeah. I guess I only and by the way, Matt, you are correct. I reread that, and what I was taking from it, possibly incorrectly, was talking about a man. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and will stick to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. I guess that's the part. The two will become one flesh. You couldn't have more than. It's isolating that to 2.
It's a shame.
That would be what I would take from it, but it doesn't. It's not as explicit as my memory is.
Correct. Yeah. And I'm glad you figured that out. Although I was getting ready to bet you $100 either to your preferred charity and you donating $100 to my preferred charity on whether or not that was the case, because I've been down this road once or twice. John, I got to get on to a couple other calls, but if you want to call in another time and maybe have a discussion kind of defending why I'm still confused, because you've abandoned parts of scripture and parts of religion and are hanging on to other parts. You've abandoned air quotes religion while maintaining Christianity. You make some really strange sort of excuses for slavery. And at the end of the day, what reason do you have to think any of that is true? Like literally true, that there is a God, that Paul was writing about a real, divine being, and how we can know what that being wants.
I realize what I'm going to say would be highly contentious, but I take what Paul said about it's inexcusable a man to believe anything different because of the outward things we see around us. And so I know science has, I understand the other argument. I knew that I was going to get that reaction, but I'm saying it in a quick, parsed way because I know you need to get to other calls. But that would
call
be
in
the
another
short
time
answer.
And do it a long version, because you already know I find that completely preposterous. So we don't even have to talk about whether or not I find it preposterous, but maybe work on making it so that I don't find it that preposterous.
There you go. I look forward to that.
Thank you, John.
Thank you guys both.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
We have another theist caller, although it's after 8, and I'm pretty sure, based on what this individual has said in their screening, that I would not count them as a qualifier anyway. But Jasmine, pronouns she, her, in Canada, is a theist that says religions are literally false but metaphorically true and can be advantageous. So how can you be a theist if you don't think there's a literal God, Jasmine?
Well, I think the belief is what's adaptive. If you don't need a literal God to believe in, you can kind of almost fake it till you make it.
Yeah, but the point is that theism is defined as someone who believes that there's actually a God. And if you're calling to say that you're a theist, but you don't believe there's actually a God, then you're not a theist.
Well, I consider myself an agnostic theist. I still think I lean towards theism as being the better side of the argument.
Okay. Well, it says here that you wanted to point out that religions are literally false, but metaphorically true. Metaphorically true in what way? And what use is that?
Well, in that they're adaptive. That I think that there's a propensity within people to have a belief system and stick to it.
Did you say adaptive?
Yeah, that's what she said.
Yes, adaptive.
How does the Bible adapt? Just out of curiosity. I'm not saying you're advocating for the Bible, but can we at least agree the Bible doesn't adapt at all?
People adapt its beliefs, like your last caller.
Sure. There are people that change. There are people that start with what a holy book says and then change it into something that they find better or more comfortable or more preferable. How is that in any way a useful thing that we should adhere to?
Well, there are things we don't know, but if we can forge ahead with some type of model, we can possibly arrive at the right conclusion, even if the theory itself is wrong.
At the right conclusion about what? Are you suggesting that because I don't ascribe to any religion, any holy book, anything supernatural, that there's some right answer that I'm not going to be able to get?
I think you have to constantly seek, constantly question, and constantly question. If you're not constantly seeking and constantly questioning, then I think you're going to potentially miss something.
What?
Isn't that the scientific method, to constantly question and constantly seeking how the world really operates? Why do we need to do that with things that are mysterious, unseeable, untestable?
Because I think the exercise in of itself is important to try to comprehend, at least superficially comprehend what may be beyond us.
What do you mean what may be beyond us? Why do you think there's something beyond us, or that there's any possibility that we could discover something beyond us? What does beyond us even mean?
Well, traditional concept of God is how we comprehend, or how we traditionally comprehend what is the sort of the God of the gap argument. How we use God to comprehend what we can or try to comprehend.
You realize that God of the gaps is a fallacy. So what is it that you're trying to understand that you think we can only understand by adopting some metaphorical religion? How do you know that, and which religion?
I think that unfortunately religion is a personal thing, and I can't say my religion or my beliefs should be necessarily dictate other people's beliefs. It's only through that personal journey that you can sort of see what fits for you. But you do need a model, some sort of
This is a bunch of
Something to
useless
hold on to.
sophistry. Jasmine, this is a bunch of useless sophistry. You're saying absolutely nothing of substance or value. You don't have an answer to any of the questions. You can't even say what it is that we're looking for or why we think we should be looking for it. It's just a personal journey and it's personal this. Fine. Go have your personal journey. I'm looking for what's actually true. Do you have anything that's actually true?
I guess I can't. Not in the terms of the scientific method, because if a God is,
it doesn't have to be in the terms of the scientific method. I'm just looking for anything freaking substantive. You can't even tell me what we should be looking for or what it is that you think we should be looking for and why you think it's likely to exist. Why shouldn't we be looking for universe creating pixies that reside in a multiverse? Should we be looking for that?
Well,
should we?
I don't know. I suppose if it brings you peace.
Oh, okay. We're done. Thank you. No, we're done. I'm here because I want to find out what's true.
Creating pixies.
There are billions of people who believe in a literal God. Any of you out there who don't believe in a literal God, but want to advocate for some utilitarian, metaphorical, frou-frou, navel-gazing, I'm going to explore the universe and find the thing that brings me peace. Go ahead, do your bong rip, go enjoy your life, but leave me the fuck alone because it's a waste of my motherfucking time. There are real problems in this world that are caused by real religion. You aren't one of them. You don't even know what the hell you're talking about. And I'm not just talking about Jasmine. It's obnoxious. This, it's a personal journey. I don't give a fuck about your personal journey. If your personal journey doesn't lead to something true and useful for the rest of us, then nobody but you can enjoy it. When you have something that's true and useful for the rest of us, come back and share. But I'm not here ever to just go, well, none of this is really testable or provable. And I'm not saying it's a scientific method, but it just seems like for the entirety of human existence, we've always contemplated the notion that there's something beyond us, something greater than us, something bigger than us, something smarter than us. And we call it God, or we call it this, or we call it that. I don't need a fucking lesson in the history of contemplative thought. I need the answers. And if you don't think you have them, keep looking. On that note, we got 3 atheist callers to kind of wrap up the show today. And we're going to start with V, pronouns are she, her in Illinois. It's about getting comfortable with the unknown. So V, welcome. You're on with Dr. Darrel Ray and me.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my call. I appreciate the time.
Sure.
You're welcome.
So my mom has recently started to tiptoe back into conversation with me on not believing. She's super uncomfortable with not having the answer to everything. I find it very exciting. She cannot grasp it. I wondered if you had any anecdotes or anything I could kind of mention to her. Just keep it light and because I don't find it scary. She shouldn't find it scary, but it's something that really bugs her.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between, I'm not comfortable with not knowing, but I'm not scared of it. It like you, it kind of excites me. If there's something that I don't know, I'm excited about the possibility of finding a way to find that. But the first thing I've got to do is say, what is it that I'm looking for? Am I looking for an answer to this question or that question? And I have to at least make some kind of peace with that. I may never know in my lifetime, but that I might know. And the only way that I'm going to get to I do know is by working towards that. You know, you're not going to find your keys if you don't look. If you just sit around worrying that I'm just afraid I'm never going to find my keys. I'm afraid I left them at the bowling alley. I'm afraid that they dropped out of the car while I was driving. I'm afraid that they're on the side of the highway somewhere. I'm afraid this, I'm afraid that. And you haven't even looked around the couch cushions or where you normally put them yet. Then maybe what you're afraid of isn't that you left your keys there. Maybe you're afraid of finding your keys. Maybe you're afraid that you'll find them in the spot where it shows that you made a mistake. Maybe that's what you're afraid of. Not you, but you know what I meant.
Yeah, right. No, I think there's definitely a lot of that in there. Yeah, she's even afraid to ask or decide what she wants to ask. So yeah, that makes a ton of sense.
V, are you familiar with the notion of street epistemology?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I think some of those skills are useful in just talking to somebody, because I don't know your mother. I'm not trying to make a comment here. But many times people get defensive in those kinds of conversations because they feel like their identity is being challenged. I love the principles of Socratic questioning and street epistemology because it helps you ask gentle questions that get people to think and respond without feeling they're being judged. And many, many, many religious people, their identity is so tied up with their religion, no matter what the religion is, that you have to be careful not to evoke the defensiveness when you're communicating with them. Anyway, that would be a suggestion. If you want more information, there's a whole website on street epistemology, or you can go to recoverfromreligion.org. Or if you really want to learn, you can come and volunteer for us because we will teach you some of those skills.
Yeah, definitely. I've actually referred a few people. So
great.
I definitely appreciate y'all. But yeah, as far as my mom goes, you kind of like hitting the nail on the head. That's very much who she is. So it sounds like what you're saying to me is, break it down, baby steps, like small bites for her.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely something that she would respond to. We have learned the hard way to
good.
How to approach these subjects. So yeah, we've definitely been through the defensiveness era, and I think we're done with that. So
always affirm your care and love, and give a good hug, and touch each other, even as you're speaking. Sometimes that alone can just really give people permission. Because I'll tell you, what you're saying, or what she thinks you're saying, or what she thinks you believe, scares the hell out of her. And
or into
literal,
her.
maybe
Definitely.
the literal hell into her. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't want to evoke that. In my book, The God Virus, and I'm not just pumping my book there. I actually have several chapters that talk about how to talk to people. And my advice is, you never get anywhere by once you've evoked that defensiveness, you might as well stop the conversation because you ain't going anywhere. And worse yet, you may be pushing them more deeply into what they are most afraid of. So you don't want to do that. Anyway, if you're interested, I'm going some detail in the last 5 chapters of my book on how to do that. But more importantly, learn good questioning skill.
That is great advice. I will for sure check that book out because I think that we're to the point where we can start practicing some of those better habits when communicating. Because if she's willing to have the discussion, maybe, So I really appreciate the advice. Thank you.
That is wonderful that your mother is willing to explore with you. That is rare. So be appreciate that you've got a mother that's willing to go that.
Yep.
Yeah. Just love her to death for that.
I'm very thankful for that.
That alone tells you she really cares for you and you care for her. Go look at our resources.
Have a great night.
You too.
Okay.
Thank you. Got a couple calls to get to. By the way, we're not going to be reading Super Chats tonight because we're not taking Super Chats for the show, which means the normal process and method that you would have to ask questions. has been scrubbed for tonight because 100% of your donations, when you click the donate button down there, go to Recovering from Religion as part of the mega fundraiser. And you guys have been awesome here just in the first 2.5 hours or so. Almost $2,000, $1,960 towards our goal.
Wow.
Here in the first thing. Granted, 100 of that is mine. But we managed to get a couple theistic callers, and one of them, genuinely, I look forward to having another conversation with John another time. But I'm going to do some reminders of what the schedule is coming up here. And then I will jump into our Discord server where the lovely and talented and beautiful and wonderful Arden Hart may have messages for me there, just in case there's specific announcements I need to get to for this. But more coming up on this network. Transatlantic Call-In Show is every Thursday, and tomorrow it's going to be hosted by Josie Caballero and Stephanie Helms, who's probably in chat right now. So that'll be at 2 p.m. Central Time. Friday is going to be the Recovering from Religion charity pre-show event. Jimmy has details on that. Saturday is going to be the RFR charity event. It's an all-day thing. Be ready to donate. Be ready to have lots of fun. Get your questions in, and let people know if there's somebody that who's on the fence or thinks religion doesn't do harm, or or not their church, not their religion, or anything like that. Point them to the charity effort, because there's a good chance we're going to hear from some people who have suffered because of different versions of religion and have found their way free, escaped, and that's not even close to the end. That is the beginning of trying to rebuild a life and figure out, hey, if I've spent 20 years believing in this particular God, and it was my answer for everything. It was my answer for purpose and meaning. It was my answer for morality. It was my answer for love. It was my answer for relationship. It was my answer on LGBT issues. It was my answer for anything and everything. And now I don't believe in it. How do I live my life? Those are serious issues. And that's one of the things where Recovering from Religion doesn't try to talk anybody out of their religion. They have the conversations and give people the tools, because a lot of people feel completely alone. If everybody else in their family is believer, they have nobody to turn to. They've only turned to family members and ministers for things like this for ages. And if you know people who don't think there's a problem, get them to watch. Maybe we'll change their mind about whether there's a problem. That's Friday and Saturday this weekend. On the Sunday show at 2 p.m. Central, I'll be on with Eric from Skeptics and Scoundrels. The Sunday show after dark is going to be Forrest and Paul. Monday Skeptalk is going to be Aron and Adair, which, you guys will learn the difference between Aron Ra and Adair. There's 2 A's in Aron. Tuesday's Chewed Gum is going to be Eve and Alyssa, and there may be other stuff coming up as well. I think I heard Arden.
Yeah, I was going to bump in. We just got a $500 donation from Rick Von Mar. Huge thank. I was gonna say, let's see if we could do another 1,000 before the show's over. I think that is very easily doable now if people are feeling good and excited about this awesome fundraiser. Imagine if before Jimmy's pre-show, actually, I think what if we tried to raise more in this show than Jimmy's pre-show? I think that would be kind of fun.
That would be good.
Oh, yeah,
you guys are feeling
it,
get cranking on it,
Thank you.
It would be nice.
Thank you so much.
We're at $2,460 right now. We have 2 callers left. They're both atheists. We're going to have conversations with both of those, and I'm going to interact with chat on occasion in between some of these. But if we can I would like to just be able to just message Jimmy right after and be like, yeah, man, we crossed the 3,000 mark already. It would be nice if we could get to 3,500 before the show is over, so I can just tell Jimmy, hey, man, I got us 10% of the way there. Our goal is 35,000. 3,500 is 10%. Somebody else just donated $501, which gets us to $2,009. We're at $2,966, which means you guys are just $534 away from getting us 10% of the way to the goal right here in the first show. Thank you, Anonymous. Thank you, everybody. Let's get to this next caller. Because I don't think they're donating just to hear me and you laugh. but they might be. Maybe.
Well,
Jacob
that's
in
sure
Virginia,
making me
pronouns he,
happy.
him, has a question for us. You're on with Darrel and me.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. So, my family's very religious. I'm 26 now. I grew up in the church. And so because I'm 26, I was like starting to explore, you know, some of the hard questions of, you know, faith and stuff. When I started doing that at like 12, 13 years old, that was kind of like the I think is my recollection is that's sort of the start of like Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens getting a lot of like prominence. So I'm sure I watched videos. It's like, you know, theist destroys Richard Dawkins. And then, you know, I was 14 and Gamergate comes up and my parents are very, you know, conservative also. And, you know, I'm 18 and Ben Shapiro starts to come on the scene. And I don't think I was ever the worst, but I watched and, you know, engaged in my fair share of like rage bait, like feminist gets destroyed, you know, that kind of embarrassing stuff when I was a teenager.
course.
And luckily I'm not like that anymore. But I know it's something that lots of people can fall into like the loop of. And I don't think for a lot of reasons that's what's like happening, but I feel like I know that is something that I could be somewhat vulnerable to. And I know there's the reputation for that among like the atheist community. And again, I don't think that's really as prominent now, but sometimes, you know, I'm having a bad day and I'm like, let me just watch The Line, but just the parts where people get, you know, kind of dogged on. And I think, you know, having a guilty pleasure is fine sometimes, but I don't want to fall into that pattern. And I think this partially has come up because I think my journey from theism to atheism was pretty fast. So, you know, and because my family doesn't feel the same way and there's like some tension there, I was trying to learn different ways to talk about them, I guess sort of living vicariously through hearing other people have discussions, because I don't really think that's an avenue that's going to be open for me. But just when you adopt a whole new belief like this and you're sort of excited and it's, you know, intellectually stimulating, I guess my question is, how do you avoid falling into this trap of like the negative feedback loop of being angry and, you know, thinking, oh, these people are so stupid and you know, I'm so much better than them. How do you think you can avoid that when you feel so strongly about something?
So,
well, I will just say that
go
the
ahead,
notion
Darrel.
of an the notion of the angry atheist is real. And many, many, many people, when they leave religion, are angry. And actually, it's justified. You feel like, man, I've been lied to. I've missed out on college because my church wouldn't let me go or whatever. But that anger I look at it as a stage of grief and loss. You're literally grieving the loss of something you thought was real. And so give it time. And I think what many people come to is a sense of humility. I may have lost out on 6 years of education, but I've got the rest of my life. So let me find out what I can do with the rest of my life now, rather than staying in that angry piece. And of course, one of the key things you can do is find something, as the great Daniel Dennett often said, if you want to find purpose, find something bigger than you, and that will help you create purpose and meaning in your life. So I don't know if that answers your question. I'll let it go with there.
No, that's helpful.
I think from my perspective, Jacob, don't worry about it. The issue here is time changes a lot of things. I'm a different atheist today than I was 10 years ago, and different from my way I was 20 years ago when I first started doing the shows. My views on things have changed. My views on LGBTQ issues have changed. My views on political issues have changed. And the only thing that I'll say is that in every case where it was shown to me that I was wrong or that I held a problematic view that I wasn't aware of, as soon as somebody showed it to me, I was like, "Oh, cool. I get it. That's done. I can change that." I don't know how anybody could look for anything more. I certainly don't look for anything more from other people. And it's one of the reasons why I'm, often accused of being a dick is because I'm incredibly forthright. And if somebody calls in with a really bad take, I'm going to let them know that's a really bad take. And I think you're being really shitty for holding that view. But the one thing I don't have is this notion that the person is irredeemable or completely useless, or that on occasion, I think a conversation with some people isn't particularly useful. But I agree with Darrell that part of that anger, in these stages of grief, you've changed something, you've lost something. And I don't think enough people realize that one of the harms of religion is, even in my case, where I didn't have abusive trauma related to religion, I wasn't harmed by the church, I didn't go through a lot of the things that a lot of other people did. I just genuinely wanted to find out how to be the best Christian I could be and justify my beliefs to other people, and then found out in a purely, intellectual fashion that I didn't have evidential warrant for what I believed. And so there's a temptation on my part to go, "Hey, I never suffered any religious trauma," except that that's not fucking true, because there's still, I just turned 55 last month. There are still little bits of baggage, nothing massive, nothing too difficult to overcome, that are still hanging on at 55. Now, when I recognize them, they're really easy to swat away. It's like, "Oh, you've put your Southern Baptist hat back on for a second. Why would you do that? You need a better reason." If the church that you were raised in was right about this issue, then it's going to be easy to identify that they were right about that issue, even without the church. And so this temptation of, "Oh, I'm worried I'm going to fall into this old trap and that old trap, and I'm going to be, am I going to get sucked into anti-feminist stuff and all this?" You might. There's a significant contingent of the atheist community that are monumental pieces of shit that I don't want anything to do with. And I frequently call them out regularly. It's just like, that's the way frequently it goes. Hey, I got it. Before I let you go on this, Jacob, I have to interrupt to say that we just got another big donation. And so, Darrell, we are now more than 10% of the way to the goal. We are sitting at $3,657.
Whoa.
Huge thank you. King Samuel
Wow.
donated $500 just a couple of minutes ago. So that's monumental.
Jimmy.
Jacob,
Wow.
I hope what Darrell and I made sense to you, and feel free to add any details or ask a follow-up.
Yeah, I kind of did have a follow-up. I think it contributes to why I'm feeling some of the anger now. The way that you described your deconstruction sounds a lot like mine. I wanted to be a better Christian, and I found out that I couldn't because it's not true. And so I thought that I wasn't going to have this angry phase. It wasn't some, teenage thing, and then I realized, that I was in fact having this anger. And I think part of it was, it stemmed from the fact that when I told, my dad, he didn't take it well, obviously. And then,
Sure.
I would listen to these kind of calls, or I would listen to the line and, that kind of thing. And, I would hear all the arguments that I would have made, that I used to make. And all the arguments that my parents made, I heard better versions of the arguments I and my parents would have made. And I saw people sort of refuse to, or be unable to accept that, or be unable to see sort of like the rationality behind it. And I think what made me realize how angry I was basically by proxy, I saw the entire the entire conversation tree that I could go down with my parents one day of, well, what about this and that and the other and this and that? And I saw people who seem intelligent who are just completely incapable of understanding when they're logically wrong about something. And so really what I wanted from my parents was just I wanted them to see that I didn't do this because I wanted to sin, or I didn't do this because I, think that I just, think that gay people are fine and I don't see what the big problem is. I wanted them to understand that I went into this for the right reasons. I wanted to be a better Christian, and this is where I found myself. And like you said before, I didn't choose my beliefs, and that's what I was trying to communicate. And that was not received. They just, that's not what they think. They think I did choose it. They don't think I came by it, honestly. And I think that's what made me angry. And having talked to so many people who are unable to see that, do you think that's just something that I should prepare to deal with? Do you think it's likely, or I guess more likely than not, that they're just going to maintain that feeling, and I'm just going to have to live with the fact that they don't really understand and they don't respect my intellectual journey?
That's the position that I'm in, and the position I've been in for 20 years. I don't know what your position is going to be, because, and I'll tell you this, by the way, I think Darrel's muted. I think he tried to talk but was muted. Dan Barker was a minister who found his way to atheism and then changed his parents' mind. Dan and I have at least somewhat similar backgrounds, but Dan, after he found his way out, helped his parents find their way out. I have not been able to do that, and I don't think I ever will. And so there's two case studies right there of two sincere believers who both found their way out without mountains of harm by purely intellectual exercises. And in one case, one of those individuals' parents also found their way out of religion as well. And in the other case, they did not and probably won't ever. I don't know where you're going to come down. I'd say prepare yourself for both eventualities, and just make sure that your parents know that you disagree with them, you don't share their beliefs or whatever else, but that you are still, at least for now, still value a relationship with them, and would like it if that didn't get in the way of a relationship. But at the end of the day, I will say there are people that I've had to cut out of my life because the fact that we're related by blood or that we were friends for 20 years doesn't mean that you have that you should be able to exercise or exert a toxic influence over my life. So I wish you all the best, and I hope that the situation improves for you. But yeah, I got to be honest. I think Dan's case is the more rare of the two options. Darrel, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to just underline everything you just said. So pick that up and run with it. But I'll throw a little psychological angle into this. And I saw it myself, but I saw it myself first. This was true for so many people I've seen over the years, both clinically and just, people I've known. And that is, we have this incredible urge for our parents to understand us. It's a deep and strong urge in most of us, especially those of us who seem to have a good relationship with our parents as we're growing up. And then when we decide to go our own way, it falls apart. I wrote an article on this. It's called Whose Pain Is It? You can go to the Recovery from Religion resources and just search for Whose Pain Is It? And it kind of addresses what you're talking about. But the underlying issue here is, don't waste your life trying to reconvert your parents to your way of thinking. And it's very unlikely to happen, as Matt's. What you should do, what I would, okay, what I would advise is spend your time developing an adult relationship with your parents. Because right now, your desire to get them to love you despite your disagreement is really a child to parent response. You're still a child responding to them. I want mommy and daddy's approval. Let's move beyond that. You're an adult now. And I'm not talking down to you. That's not my purpose. I'm just saying it's a tendency I see in all of us. I saw it in myself. It took me probably till the time I was 35 years old to realize, oh shit, why am I still asking for my parents' approval? That's crazy. I should be an adult, whether my parents approve of my opinions or not. Does that make sense? Or how does that sound to you?
No, that makes a lot of sense. I think that's definitely something to keep in mind. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jacob. I got to let you go. We're going to move on to the final call of the day. But yeah, what Darrel said hit home just now, because while it's really easy for me to be repeatedly in a position where it's like, hey, I don't need my parents' approval anymore. I don't need them, if they're not going to be a good influence in my life, I don't need them in life. But the second he said it, I was like, it'd be really cool. It'd be really cool to get dad's approval or mom's approval for this thing over here, completely unrelated to, the atheism or anything else. And I still do it to this day. If I do something cool, if I, do something mechanically minded, repair something that I know my dad would appreciate, or if I have a question about one of those things, that's where I go. If I find, something that relates to my mom or whatever, that's where I go. I'm going to do that until all of us are dead. It's just seemingly unavoidable. And if ever the relationship severs to where we don't talk as much, I'm still going to have that desire to have somebody say, wow, that was really good, son.
Yeah.
And I'm very fortunate.
I really appreciate you taking my call.
Thanks, Jacob.
Thank you.
I'm going to close by saying that I'm incredibly fortunate. And I've said this before, that my brother and I are virtually inseparable. If he wasn't so busy working, he'd be in chat here today. And that's where I always get attaboys and congratulations from. And that's where I will always direct my attaboys and congratulations to. We got to talk just the other day. He's in a new house. He got a new job. He just went and bought a new mower. We were talking about that and doing the pictures. He pulled out his old drafting kit and made a diagram for his outdoor storage thing that he's going to build to park the mower and chop wood and all this. And it looks like he hired a professional, architect to come design this. And it's just his little shed and everything. It's freaking amazing. The guy blows me away all the time. Not his mind and his heart. I love my brother to death. And nothing and nobody's going to stop that. Final call for today. Clarissa, calling from Florida, pronouns she, her. Thank you so much for your patience waiting. I know you've been waiting almost an hour. We have raised over $3,800 for recovering from religion.
All right.
And we are thrilled that you waited this long so that we can try to help out if possible. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for taking my call, and first time caller here, so I'm super excited to talk to you guys. I have a question regarding, well, not so much a question. I just would like to know how to help my father. He just retired from the ministry this past December, and the past year, a little over a year and a half, he's had a lot of mental health problems, but he's always refused to get help, psychological help. And there is a history of mental illness on his side of the family. I'm calling because I guess I'm really the only reasonable one of the family. And I'm worried about him. You know, most of the family thinks it's a spiritual problem. They don't want to address it from the psychological view. My sisters, my siblings don't really want to have anything to do with him. So it's really just me and my mom trying to help him. And we're both at a loss. And so I was just wondering if you had any advice. It's to the point where he doesn't leave the house unless my mom tells him to. She's explained to me basically he's like a child, which is very concerning because our entire lives he was very authoritative, and very legalistic, had all these rules and stuff. So to see him just the total opposite of that, it's mind-boggling. And we don't have, psychology backgrounds or anything. So I was just wondering what input you had for me.
Well, that's a tough one, Clarissa. I mean, you clearly love your father, and I'm hearing your own angst about it. Let me say a couple things. First of all, that what you just described is actually not uncommon for people when they retire from the ministry. I'm not always sure what causes it. Sometimes it's an existential crisis. Sometimes the shock of the dramatic change from being in contact with people all the time to almost nothing. Sometimes it's a loss of purpose. And there's a lot of reasons why a person would start acting like your father is. But from everything you just described, it's classic depression. And if it's gone more than 6 months, which it sounds like it has, then that is a diagnosable depression that could be helped with medication and certainly would respond, not certainly, but very likely respond to talk therapy as well. Getting someone to admit they've got a problem is difficult. But and I don't have the formula. I'm not going to sit here telling you do this or you do that. I will make this suggestion. Do you and your father have a reasonably close relationship?
It's strained, but out of
Okay.
all the girls, I'm the only one who actually has a relationship with him.
Okay, so that's important because he's evidently, or they have distanced themselves, or he's alienated them. Is that the case?
Yes. Yes, he's alienated all of us.
Yeah, right. Now, I won't go into why, or I don't know enough, so I'm not going to worry about that. What I will say is, if you have the opportunity and you feel like you have the energy to do this, I would say get your dad totally alone. Get him somewhere where he's not near your mother. You don't want her interfering. You don't want any other people interfering. Go out for a walk with him. Literally walk with him in the park. Now, the best way to talk to someone, and I'm going to say this, the best way to talk to a man about this kind of problem is not face to face. Your tendency might be to sit him and look him in the eye and say, here's the problem. I would suggest get him outside, go for a walk in the park, stand beside him, walk a mile or two together, and then get honest with him. Say, Dad, I am concerned about your health right now. And use side-to-side talking with your father. Don't do face-to-face until he's ready. If he turns to you and looks at you, that's okay. But you don't be the one turning to him. But express this strong concern that you've got and just say, I love you, Dad. I want to see you thrive. You're in retirement now. Retirement should be a time of joy, time of doing something new and different, finding hobbies you've been putting off or something like that. And showing me care. Quite frankly, if he's an authoritarian or authoritative kind of parent, he has now been flipped. Now that he's retired, he's no longer the authority figure. Now that all the kids are gone and they're not talking to him, he's no longer got that power anymore. That's a pretty big leap for somebody like that, for that kind of a personality. But I would, if you're capable of touching him and holding him and hugging him and telling him, I love you, I'm concerned, I would like to sit down and work out a plan, because this is treatable. This is not, it's not like you got a terminal cancer. This is simply a chemical imbalance in the brain. That's the simplest way to put it. And it's very treatable, but it needs to be treated probably with some antidepressant drugs, and it needs to be treated with some talk therapy. And he will then learn how to thrive in this new world that he's got, this retirement world. And that's your goal, to help him learn how to thrive. And I'm going to go a little bit farther here. This is weird. It's a weird thing I've seen. But sometimes when people get older, they kind of in the back of their mind realize, uh-oh, everything I told everybody else to do isn't working. In fact, they may even become an atheist. That's why we have a program called the Clergy Project. In case you hadn't heard of that, you might want to look into the Clergy Project. No, okay. Well, it's probably not for your father because he's still religious. Anyway, let me stop right there. I have given you a hell of a lot. I'm sorry, but I don't have a lot of time, and I wanted to give you as much as I could. I'll stop right there. How do you feel? What's that sound like?
Well, some of that my mom and I have tried to do. It's been very hard to get him out of the house. My mom even got a dog this past Christmas to help, bring him out of the house. But his reaction was, I want to kill that dog. We can't afford it, blah, blah, blah. Just constantly negative. And that's another thing. Basically, he's so focused on the finances. And he's negative about everything, and he doesn't want to spend money on anything. And even though he and my mom are perfectly comfortable, they have their retirements taken care of, but he bases his life, everything he does on a daily basis, on how is it going to affect me money-wise. And I think that is playing a huge role along with the depression. My mother has speculated that she thinks he might have borderline personality disorder. But she doesn't know. None of us know, because he's not willing to talk about it. He's not willing to get help.
No. Yeah, I wouldn't be diagnosing anything except the obvious, and that's depression.
Right.
And your mom's not qualified to diagnose it, and I'm certainly not qualified to diagnose something from long distance. I'm just going on what you told me about his behavior. There's a lot.
I would be wondering. I would be wondering if there's financial issues. I would be wondering if there's financial issues that he's not sharing with anybody, that he's not sharing with your mom. If he's focused so much on that, I don't know what his situation is, but on some occasions there are financial issues that one person has kept hidden from everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go into everything, but I will say that his retirement was basically forced. He had just, I guess, he just kind of flipped at the beginning of last year, and my mom left him, and that sent him spiraling. And then she had to come back because he had made such a mess of the finances. So, she's back home now, just trying to fix everything.
And the retirement's
She's done a
new?
great job.
The retirement's new since then?
Yes. I mean, they have investment property, so that's their retirement.
No. I just meant on the timeline. So I'm going to go with what Darrell said. I'm not going to add too much to it.
Right.
I think you're doing the right things. I think Darrell's advice on trying to have the side-by-side conversations, the expressions of concern, and time. Once again, it sounds like he went through a lot, and got kind of surprised and caught by surprise on a couple of different things where, hey, my wife left me, I made a mess of things, and then she came back and helped me fix it, but I was kind of forced into retirement, and now nothing about my life makes sense anymore. Even getting a dog is somebody else making a decision that impacts his life that he didn't necessarily have any say over. So I can understand the bitterness there. I think a good chunk of it is time, but I think you're on the right path. And that Darrel's advice would be most helpful for having those conversations.
Okay. Could you add anything if he's suicidal? Like, is there anything I can help with?
Yeah,
If he's well,
that changes
if
things.
he's suicidal, if he's having thoughts of self-harm or something, I would make sure. Well, you can call 911. You can call the suicide hotline and ask them what to do. I'm not going to give you advice. Call them, tell them what's going on. They'll say how to proceed. Yeah, don't mess around with that, and don't hope.
It absolutely changes
get on.
Even to what extent we can or should be involved. I'm not trying to shuffle you off other than we're at the end here, but if that's what's happening, that should be the focus.
Yep.
Okay. I think it's just more threats, him not following it up, but he's just
Could
such a
be, but
mess,
none of us are in a position to make that decision. That's got to be the focus.
Yeah.
And even if it's posturing, there's a reason people posture with that, knowing that it has to be the focus, knowing that it should be the focus. There's a reason that becomes the threat and not something else. And it just has to be dealt with. It's one of those things where when you're triaging, ooh, the house is on fire and blah, blah, blah. This is number one.
Okay.
I wish you all the best.
Thank you guys so much.
Let us know if it works out and things start to improve. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to call back.
Thank you so
Thanks
much
for calling in.
All right, thank you.
All right. Daryl Ray, my friend of many years.
Yeah.
Turns out when we did this fundraiser last year, this Jimmy Snow dude did, I don't know, a 75,000 hour show or something where he raised $7,000 as the first money that came in. Now, we're not going to beat that because we're almost out of time and we're only at $4,390. Y'all have turned up in an outstanding fashion. I am I am overwhelmed and humbled by it's just absolutely amazing. Hey, producer lady.
Yes.
How is the show going to end today? Are we going to be running a 30-minute promotional video afterwards? Are we going to be running something for the fundraiser, or are we just going to roll credits?
As far as I know, we're just going to roll credit this time. But, if you guys wanted to, talk to chat or call out some donations as you see them for a minute, that's okay. It's totally up to you. You guys are steering the ship. I think we've done a kick-ass job for a short show before the pre-show. We haven't even done the pre-show, and we've raised $4,300. You guys are unreal, and I am so excited to see what kind of barriers we can break with the donations this year. So.
Okay, for the next 25 minutes. Because I'm gonna set us up to end at 9:30 on the nose. If you have a question that you want either myself or Daryl to answer, the phone lines are closed. All you have to do is make a donation and then tag me immediately after the donation with your question for me or Daryl, and we'll knock it out over the next 24 minutes now. But I'm just going to be looking at chat for my tag. And Daryl, you, we kind of short-circuited part of your story. Jay Donchild donated $5 to RFR. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
In between these, as they're coming in, I don't know if you're going to be able to jump in on those. It felt like there was a story that you were almost going to tell but didn't about 2.5 hours ago.
Well, I have several stories on that, but one of the funnier ones is when I was right after I got divorced in 1989. I started dating this woman, and we got along really well. We were, yeah. Anyway, got along really well, but we always came to my house instead of going to hers. Well, one day I went to her apartment because I was in her area. It was okay. It was not like it was before cell phones, so I couldn't call her probably. Anyway, I knock on the door and she answers. She's really glad to see me, and we're both horny as hell for each other, and that was cool. But I get into her bedroom. I've been in her bedroom before, but not, just visiting. And I walk in her bedroom, and it's a totally different decor. And she's Catholic, by the way. I should add that.
Mm.
And the decor has Jesus, it has rosaries, it has Bibles, it has all this religious stuff. And I say, Jean, where did all this come from? It wasn't here the last time. And she tells me, well, Daryl, I just can't come with Jesus watching me. So I take him down if I know you're coming over. So that was one of my
just can't come with Jesus watching. So this Jimmy Snow guy donated money and asked this question and tagged me, so I've got to answer it. Matt Dillahunty, what would you say is Jimmy's most handsome quality? Genuinely, no bullshit. I think Jimmy has handsome eyes.
I
don't know if he can come with Jesus
Jimmy's. I love Jimmy's sense of humor. I don't know Jimmy as well as you do, but every time I'm around him, his sense of humor is just hilarious sometimes.
Don't say too many nice things about him because he'll just get uncomfortable and be
I'll
pissed.
Tell him to go. I'll tell him to go fuck himself.
Fuck yourself.
Yep.
Somebody in chat said, will Matt Dillahunty shave his beard if $5,000 was reached in the next 10 minutes? No, but
whoa,
no, I won't. But I will with Arden's approval, because she suggested that I grow this out. If we hit $7,000 in the next 21 minutes, I will shave it completely off as long as Arden says okay.
You don't need my permission to shave your face, but sure.
You're the one that's going to have to live with a bare-faced me. I look like I'm 12, even at 55. So if you guys hit 7,000 by the time 9:30 hits, I will shave my beard completely off. Mustache, beard, everything. I'll grow it right the fuck back, but I will definitely take it off. Now, if we hit the goal,
I did.
There's going to be some offers of tattoos and stuff. Jimmy says it should be 8,000, so I definitely beat him. All right, that's it. If you guys hit 8,000 in the next 20 minutes, I will completely shave it off. I don't think that's likely to happen, but there'll be other deals and tattoos and other things coming up. But, go for it. Darrel, what story were you going to tell us now?
Well, I had denied publicly that I was atheist for years, even though I was. I just couldn't because I had a business, and all that sort of stuff. I was dating this woman, Judy. We're still great friends, Judy and I. But we were on an airplane to England. We were going to go on a little vacation over there. And she is reading an article that I had written, and I was getting some feedback from her. And she looked up from the article, and she said, Darrel, I'd always called myself an agnostic. So, and she was frustrated by that because she'd been an atheist since she was 14 years old. So every time we got into a conversation, I'd just kind of move around that. I wasn't ready to, quote, come out, So we're on this airplane. She's reading this article. And she looks up, Darrel, you're an atheist. You should shit or get off the pot. And I thought, you're right. I should shit or get off the pot. So that's when I first came out and admitted to myself and started telling other people. But it was my relationship with her that helped me see that I didn't need to be quite as close about it. Anyway, I always thought it was funny, shit or get off the pot.
That was a common phrase around the house. And I don't think it's common anymore because everybody's got, 2.5 bathrooms. But if you grew up where there was one outhouse, one bathroom, and somebody else had to go, you need to get moving.
I was in a family of 4 boys, 6 people, and we had 1 bathroom, so it was clearly an issue, like you said.
Let me run through some of these donations real quick as they come in. I haven't seen another tag other than Jimmy tagging me. So Kaleidoscope Green donated $20 to Recovering from Religion. Gregory Hurst donated $50 to Recovering from Religion. Anonymous donated $5. Anonymous donated $20. And Jade On Child tagged me and said, "You're making me wish I didn't have bills to pay." Well, just for saying that, tag me again with the question you want to ask. Don't donate or contribute, because I guarantee you nobody here wants to interfere with anybody's ability to pay bills or make ends meet.
Yeah.
The charitable stuff comes after you and yours are taken care of. So if you have a question or something you want to poke fun at me about, you can tag me. I'll still read it. We're gonna hang out here for a few more minutes and have some fun. S. Tom 10 says, Matt Dillahunty, my mom is a Hebrew Israelite who believes black people are the real Jews. How do I challenge her? Wow. How do you challenge her? I have no idea. I mean, if somebody were to say this, I can tell you what questions I'd ask, which is I would want to know why they think that. What evidence do they have? And also, why does it matter? And how do you identify who's black and who's not? And how do you identify who's a Jew and who's not? It's not like, there are people of a variety of different skin tones and features, and we've blended so much. How much could it matter, and how can she tell? Those are the questions I'd probably start with. I guess I should put my glasses on so I can read this stuff a little easier. Anonymous donated $5 to Recovering from Religion.
Great.
Someone that far down the rabbit hole is gone. It may not be, but the Dynamic Jab donated $20 to Recovering from Religion. I wish if it hadn't interfered with the show so much, it would have been fun just to sit here and keep reading those over and over again. But yeah, I don't know what benefit is there to thinking that black people are or aren't the originals or the original Jews or the original anything. B&B has several ex-Hebrew Israelites. Check us out. Sober Stoner. Deepak Stevens donated $5, and RC DeShane donated $5 as well. Sovereign Citizens at Brands. We're closing in on $5,000 now, Daryl. And
great. I'm thrilled. This is far more than I expected tonight.
I'm wondering.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
I got another question. How much to get you to glue a rainbow clown afro to your head? It depends on what kind of glue. I mean, if you want me to use like CA glue, I'd rather not. It would take quite a lot for me to do it with CA glue. If you want me to just put a clown afro on my head and wear it for an entire show, I'll do that for $500 just without the glue. But when will you be in Orlando this month? Says Jam
I think you could make that a solid $1,000. If we're trying to beat Jimmy, I think that the clown afro, if you want to do that, let's make that a higher tier.
Well, I don't have a clown afro, so I'd have to go out and get a clown afro. They just want me to wear it for a show. I'll wear it for a show. I could do that.
We could get you a clown afro.
Yeah,
we live in a city.
RFR will buy the clown afro for you, so we get the $1,000.
No, because that means you guys are spending money, which means it just goes in a circle. If we donate money to you and you use it to buy me a clown wig, that's just anyway. Jamix06 wants to know when I'll be in Orlando this month, and I will be in Orlando the weekend of the 19th. I think it's Sunday the 19th. Let me get my calendar up. Yep, I will be in Florida May 18th and 19th, and speaking on May 19th. To the Central Florida Free Thought community. The title of the talk is going to be, Can You Hang Up on Family? That's Sunday, May 19th, 2 p.m. at University Club at Winter Park. So there we go. There's that. Anonymous donated $5. Bubbles donated $5. Zero Alligator donated $10. Oh my gosh, there's several that I missed in this. Somebody said to use Gorilla Glue. I don't think so, but thanks. Anonymous did $5. Gabe Valdez donated $50, and KPK 1958 donated $20. Jimmy says he's got a clown afro in his special closet. Come out of that special closet, Jimmy. Skeptalk says, is Jimmy a FreeBSD guy or a Windows guy? My money's on the Linux distro. Oh, is he a bland Cisco router guy? Nighthawk is better, Jimmy. You would have to ask him, but I suspect, well, no, I'm not going to tell you. I know, at least I know some of the operating systems and things that Jimmy uses, but that's up to him to answer. Deepak Stevens says, my mom believes white people are the true Jews and the original creation of Jehovah. P.S. Love your work, Dr. Darrell. Yeah, that would almost need to be a call where I'd need to interact with the person and know better how to actually address that. It's wild. Jamnik says, thanks, I'll see you there. Oh, what else does Jimmy have in his special closet? I don't know anything about Jimmy's special closet. What you should probably do is tune in to Friday to the RFR charity pre-show. I imagine Jimmy's going to be doing Cus I Wanna and some other stuff to let everybody know what the schedule is going to be for Saturday and to try and raise donations to compete with you guys, which is why we got to get to $157 more over the next 12 minutes. I mean, if you don't, Jimmy's going to have a real easy time on Friday of beating us today. I mean, I don't want to guilt you guys into anything, but someone bought Forrest a Tooth Bunny mask. I'm sure someone get mad at Rainbow Afro. Yep. Matt and Forrest, I'm hoping we'll be at the pre-show too. Yeah, I'll be around if you need me. I've got a bunch of snake stuff to do. Hey, that's it. I could bring a snake in here for the next few minutes. A snake that most people don't normally get to see. Perch Dragon will match $50 before the 12 minutes, and Anonymous just donated $50. So since you said you'd match it before Anonymous's donation comes in, I guess you got to match that one. Ha. Jimmy says also, if we raise enough money, I'll do a show and tell from the closet, though. A show and tell from the closet, though it might get banned. Honey, can you grab Paul?
Yep.
Sweet. You guys are getting ready for a treat, a treat, and so is Paul. Paul is one of our snacks, and Anonymous, another $50 donation. Thanks so much. I don't mind calling if it's appropriate. Depends on which show you're on. Yeah, I hear you.
Matt, could you be fulfilling a prophecy from the New Testament about snake handling here?
No, because first of all, that is in Mark chapter 16, verses 9 through 20, which is almost certainly a forgery and not a prophecy. But also, it says that they can handle serpents and any poisonous thing. And the one I'm getting ready to handle is not poisonous at all. Not poisonous or venomous. So yeah, here's a fun snake fact.
Very good.
Australia has severely limited. How is he? He's looking good. He's looking good like always. Oh yes. Australia has severely limited to where you can't import or export any snakes from there at all anymore. This is Paul. He is a woma, which is Aspidites ramsey. It is an Australian python. He's a male. His girlfriend I would have brought out, but she will absolutely bite the crap out of me. I think somebody traumatized her, and all of her reactions are vicious. And she's not aggressive. She's just scared and defensive. But Paul is our male woma. They are a breeding pair. They still live separately. But you can't export these from Australia anymore. So all of the ones that you can get your hands on outside of Australia are captive bred snakes from lines that were exported before they changed the rules. This snake is one of only 2 species in the Aspidites genus. Aspidites ramsii is this one, and the other one is Aspidites melanocephalus, which is a black-headed python. And if you look at his head, the biggest difference between a Woma, this beautiful boy, my God, you're being so good, and a black-headed python is that a blackhead is pitch black from the tip of the nose back about this far, where the neck starts to get wider. It's just completely black. He doesn't get to come out as much as he should. Oh my God, you're just wonderful. He was one of my dream snakes. Like when I was growing up, this was on my wish list of there has to be this snake. And in honor of Paul, we just crossed the $5,000 mark. Yeah, $5,001.
Cool.
Thank you so much, sweetie. Gosh, he's so awesome.
Awesome.
And we need to take him out more because he loves it. Paul is very awesome. Let me get caught up on the last to chat, and then we will wrap this stuff up. Monkey at Typewriter donated $1, and that was what put us over the 5,000 mark. Joshua Everett donated the $7 that took us there, and then Monkey at Typewriter took us to 5,001. So we're doing really good there. Let me check the last couple of tags here. How do you square the incarceration of snakes and feeding them live animals with the God that the mafia boss argument? Are you snake and rodent mafia boss? Well, in this case, we raise rats, mice, and ASFs. Ooh, that light got turned. There we go. We raise rats, mice, and ASFs. Most of you know what rats and mice are. ASFs are African soft fur. They're a rodent that is probably a cousin of rats and mice. Some people have tried to say it's like halfway between. That's not a thing in evolution. But what we have is essentially a euthanasia chamber. And we try to get all of our snakes to where they eat frozen thawed. And the process is pretty straightforward. When the babies are born, after a week or so, they'll be ready to start eating. And we generally feed babies live, but we feed them pinky rodents. So it's a quick kill and as efficient as possible. And then we shift them onto fresh killed from the euthanasia chamber. And then we switch them onto frozen thawed, because first of all, the rats and the mice can do harm to the snakes, and we love our rodents and don't want, we don't want to be cruel to them. But the fact of the matter is snakes are our snakes that we're raising are obligate carnivores, and that's how we have to feed them. Darrel, close us out. Tell us what are we looking forward to this weekend in having fun for a fundraiser?
Thank you. Well, looks like we're going to be doing about 10 hours long during Saturday and not counting Friday. We're going to have all the Holy Trinity, which is Unholy Trinity, which is you, of course, and Seth and Aron on there. We're going to have a bunch of other YouTubers all talking. And there are actually YouTubers out there. You probably know this, Matt, that came out of religion and called us for help. And now they've made the full transition out, and they're actually YouTube producers, content producers. I'm specifically thinking of Paulogia. He literally came to a recover from religion meeting when he left religion, and we were his main support. He told this story just the other day. So We're going to get stories. We're going to get to hear people talk about how they've supported us, how we supported them. It's going to be interesting. It's always going to be fun because some of these people are fairly, they haven't told their own story, or if they have, it's not been in a place like this before. We're going to hear some people's stories. We're going to answer some questions, and lots of fun and laughs and jokes probably too. Is that
I've got the
what
schedule.
you're looking for, Matt? Okay.
Yeah, it is. I've got the actual schedule beginning at noon, and I'm assuming all of these are central because we've always given our times out central.
Yeah, they are central.
Yeah, so noon we're going to start the 1 hour pre-show timer and whatever video stuff's going on there. At 1 o'clock is when we're going to kick this off. 1 o'clock central. I will be the main host along with Apostasy and No Illusions from 1 to 2. At 2 p.m., Aron Ra will take over with Professor Dave and Dara. At 3 p.m., Seth Andrews will take over with Eve Was Framed and Brady Goodwin. At 4, Forrest Valkai will take over as host with Austin Archer and Paulogia. At 5, Jimmy Snow comes in with Jesus Christ and Derek from Myth Vision. At 6, Owen Morgan's coming in with Eric from Skeptics and Scoundrels and Aaron Lewis. 7 o'clock, Arden Hart, the lovely and talented, just got her hair done and looks $5,000 of fabulous right now. Arden Hart will be coming on at 7 o'clock with Glinda Jordan and Josie Caballero. 8 o'clock, Jimmy comes back with Aaron Adair and Dr. Ben. And then at 9 o'clock, I will be on with Seth Andrews and Aron Ra. That's the hour-long segment of the Return of the Unholy Trinity right there. And at 10 o'clock, I will be closing out the entire evening's events, myself, Darrel Ray, and then there will be, it just says short wrap-up. So that's going to be the conclusion. I don't know if we'll do a whole hour. Maybe I can keep Darrel up all night, and we can just do like an extra 3 hours to try to get people to donate everything and shave.
There you
beard.
go.
But
I'm all for it. Gail may join
right.
us too.
Let me.
You like Gail better than you like me. I know that.
Oh, I love Gail to pieces. Let me wrap this up and stick a bow on it. I've mentioned before how important the Wednesday night show is to me. I love doing the Sunday show. I love doing the debates and the discussions. Wednesday night is like my therapy. This show, The Hang Up, was conceived as an excuse for me to get whatever's on my chest off my chest. So tonight it started with some bullshit meme and some lazy atheist gotcha. But then it led into fun discussions with Darrel and a bunch of callers that absolutely shined a bright light on why recovering from religion is so essential as an organization. And it doesn't just need your funds, although you can still click that donut link from now for 9 whole days. So if you're one of those who just, you're getting paid in a few days or whatever, tonight was not your only chance. For the next 9 days, that donate link's going to be there on everything that the line puts up, including the fundraiser, all the shows, stuff like that. It'll be there. Or maybe it won't be on everything that the line puts up for 9 days. I shouldn't have said that. It'll definitely be there through the fundraiser weekend, and you'll still be able to donate to it for 9 days. The goal is $35,000. We already hit $5,000 tonight. I hope that we crush the goal. I'd like to get to a point where you watch those Christian churches, you watch those mega churches, you watch those, the Christian Broadcast Network, when they're asking for millions of dollars and millions of dollars so that they can go buy a private plane to fly around the world and lead more people to Christ or whatever else. Holy moly, $2,000 donation just came in.
Wow. Cool.
Holy moly. Somebody's trying to make it easier for people to make me shave my beard off. You're less than $1,000 away. I better wrap this shit up if I want to keep my beard.
Yeah.
$7,081 is going to be the total for tonight's show. I'll stop talking.
Wow.
I guess maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should never stop talking. Maybe I should just keep going and going and going.
It's
but
weak.
Hit the
We're less
mark.
than 500 away from beating Jimmy and less than 1,000 away from Matt shaving his beard. There's got to be someone out there who wants this.
No, we're not, because it's actually after 9:30, and that was the time limit.
There you go. That was the time.
In any case, you guys are awesome.
Wow.
I can't believe that there's a $2,000 donation that came in right at the last minute.
Wow.
We're going to blow this out of the water. We're going to go beyond the $35,000. We're going to show people that not only is a secular community able to do charity events, but also we are supportive of each other. And by supporting Recovering from Religion, you are not just supporting atheists and seculars. You're supporting every theist that is out there with a struggle. Even if they end up calling Recovering from Religion, sitting there, getting counseling, working through it, and remaining a fundamentalist, evangelical, whatever believer for the rest of their life, we still did something good. That's the value of recovering from religion. That's one of the reasons why I love working here on the line. Thank you, Darrel, for joining me tonight. Thank you, Arden, for producing.
Thank you.
Thanks to our call screener, all of our moderators, and everybody who donated. Oh, that's not $800 US. I was like, boy, you guys almost got there. We'll see you next time.
All right. Goodbye, everyone. We were
Tune
so
in tomorrow
close.
for Transatlantic
Good
at 2
night.
p.m. Central. Beard might be safe. I wonder what goal we should set for me to get that tattoo. That cat tattoo.
I don't know.
I'll tell you right now, put it in the final thing. If we hit 40,000, I'll get that cat tattoo.
Oh, good.
Goal's 35. If we hit 40, I'll get the cat tattoo that we talked about last time. See you guys next time.